Welcome to all our viewers across Milpitas during this pandemic. Uh, Welcome to tonight's special Milpitas City Council meeting for our CIP, the Capital Improvement Program. And we want to welcome folks all across Milpitas on youtube.com or Facebook live stream. Let's see here. Looks like we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we'll go to our City Clerk, Wendy Wood, for the roll call.
Good evening, Mayor. Councilmember Chua?
Here.
Councilmember Dominguez?
Present.
Councilmember Fan?
Present.
Vice Mayor Montano?
Here.
Mayor Tran?
Here. Thank you very much, Wendy. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, next up is the approval of the agenda. We got one item tonight. I'll move to approve the agenda. Need a second.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Dominguez. All in favor, we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. The agenda is approved. Let's keep it moving here. Public forum, folks. We're on the Zoom. Folks, if you're tuning in, per usual, we do have a Zoom. The link is posted on the city website, the City of Milpitas Facebook page, and you're more than welcome to join us on the Zoom. You'll be able to interact with us and engage with us, and I have a microphone during moments like now, the public forum. We'll do 2 minutes tonight for comments. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, maybe perhaps it's your first time, then you'll need to get on the Zoom for the public forum. If you're here for the agenda item tonight, which is the Capital Improvement Program budgeting meeting, very exciting night, one of my favorite nights of the year, actually. You can speak during the agenda item as well, but don't let me hold you back from speaking during the forum. First up, we have Alan Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Let me tell you a story. I've been told that it's easier to remember a story than it is to remember just facts. Johnny was a veteran and he lived in a studio apartment with his wife and his daughter. He found out with pride that his wife was pregnant again, this time with twins. He also found out that his brother in the military was being deployed and needed help with his 2 children. Johnny went to his Veterans Administration advocate to inquire as to how he could get help financing a new home for his growing family. And he was told that the VA was sorry, there were no housing funds available and that all the funds for the next 10 years were already allocated into a 10-year finance plan that was already approved. He was told that there were some BBB funds available and that they would be used to upgrade his current studio apartment. The Build Back Better funds would be used by the VA to put in all new appliances, take down a wall, open up the space, put on new quartz countertops and a pergo floor. In fact, the place would be so nice, it would be a showplace featured in an upcoming publication on how small places can be improved. Johnny was intrigued and grateful, but realized that he would have to move out of his studio apartment until construction was completed, and at the end, there would be no additional space for his growing family. He would have to find other arrangements. Johnny was surprised that his VA representative could not understand why Johnny was not thrilled with what the VA was going to do for a studio. After all, the VA was going to make all those improvements and spend all of that money. Johnny was grateful and accepted a generous offer from the VA, and he lived in an RV in a tennis court parking lots across the street from his studio apartment until construction was completed. He did this so that he could utilize the value of the upgrades to his studio, but it didn't meet his needs, and he continued to look for other solutions. I hope you can see some parallels between this story and what the pickleball community is requesting from the city of Milpitas. Thank you for listening.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Voltaire Montemayor.
Good evening, City Council, City staff, and the administration. Especially, I would say tonight, Steve Erickson and Michael Silvera, if I pronounce them right. Yeah, it should be very interesting. I would say a lot of figures again. And the good thing about this one, if other cities don't do this, this is great in Milpitas, having the increment of 5 years. In other words, we are good now for year 2022, and the most concentration for the 5-year increment is for 2023, although we consider other 4 years. But we still hope that the whatever that we consider much, I don't know, I mentioned I don't want to say something like I'm doing in advance of what they plan to present tonight, that it's really a meticulous job. In other words, diligently and thoroughly in considering the council and the city staff themselves. So we hope it will be a great one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you. Okay, I see no further virtual raised hands, but folks, if you're here, put your virtual raised hand up if you're an attendee. I want to take your public comments, but if you're here for the agenda item, which is our capital improvement program, we'll get there as well. Super exciting night, like I said, one of my favorite nights of the year. So just so much opportunity. It's delightful. Okay, I see no further virtual raised hands. We'll go ahead and close the public forum. We'll go back here to the agenda. And we have announcements. Let's go to our city manager, Stephen McHarris.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I have no announcements for the special meeting.
Great, thank you very much. For announcements, I want to go back to you, Mr. City Manager. If you can provide an update. I know you sent a memo out recently about the street lights citywide and the progress we're making. If you can share with our community where we're at now.
Well, with our community, what I would have is we have a number of streetlights that have been out for a while, and the reason is for various reasons. Some of them are PG&E lights, some of them are city lights, and there's various reasons that these have changed out. Some of these have gone out through our program of changing out all our streetlights to LEDs. The ones that are remaining have other electrical shorts or other issues there that we're immediately working on. We just finished a meeting with PG&E today to help assist us in taking care of some of those streetlights immediately. They should all be done within the next month or so, and meaning they'll all be up and operating. We're on it, and I would also add that I know there's been a number of tickets put into the My Milpitas app, and staff will be replying to all those ticket holders that have not heard back recently on the status of those streetlights that they put in a ticket for. So you will be hearing back from us shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we have, in terms of the streetlights, NG working as well, from what I read, correct?
That's correct. NG is our contractor that is working on all the streetlights.
Okay, great. Yeah, for all the folks out there, we are working on it right now. So any further announcements from my colleagues? We have a virtual raised hand. Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. At this time, I would like to make an announcement in just recognizing that today is Wear Orange Day. Many people around the nation are wearing Wear Orange in order to raise awareness about teen dating violence and to help stop the abuse before it starts. We stand in solidarity together with young individuals and support healthy relationships. I want our viewers to know that microaggressions are a form of violence. Microaggressions could be seen colleague to colleague, someone you're dating, or in any other form of post that you may read in cyberspace. If you or someone that you know is experiencing any type of abuse or any microaggressions, please know that there is help. You don't have to take it. You are enough, and you could stop this type of violence. Did you know that individuals who begin with microaggressions have there is data that shows that over 90% of these individuals that begin with microaggressions actually have childhood trauma. This childhood trauma then leads into relationships, and it is up to us as a community to support healthy relationships, respect, and to show our young individuals how this is done. If you need any help, please feel free to visit www.empowerhouseva.org. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any further announcements?
I have one more.
Yes, carry on.
Thank you so much, Mayor. At this time, I would just like to ask staff or announce, I know I've been getting some concerns in regards to Milpitas sanitation picking up trash in some of our shopping centers beginning at 4:30 in the morning. There is a shopping center behind Sunny Hills Apartments, and I was just wondering if you could either send all of us what the city statute is on that, on how early they could collect the trash, and maybe just talk to them and see if they could push it forward, because I guess it's causing a lot of noise and it's waking up the neighbors over at the apartment complex. So if you could just bring that back, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. My other colleagues, any further announcements? Okay, seeing no requests, let's keep it going here. We have announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions with our city attorney, Christopher Diaz.
Thanks, Mayor Tran. At this time, I'd ask the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to the item on tonight's agenda. And we'll start with Councilmember Chua.
None.
Thank you. Councilmember Dominguez.
And
Thank you. Councilmember Fan. Thank you. Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
Thank you. And Mayor Tran.
I just want to note, I was looking at the CIP, it's like 292 pages or 392 pages. Just in case there's any projects happening in the Main Street, Midtown area, I just want to note that I do live likely around 1,000 feet of it. So as we move forward, I'll keep that in mind, but no conflicts that I'm aware of right now.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. And then I think if the council gets into a discussion about anything near Main Street, if you want to step out, you're more than welcome to, and I'm happy to help facilitate that. I won't ask the secondary question on campaign contributions just because there's no contracts or private development projects on tonight's agenda. So I'll just leave it at that. Mayor, would you like me to move on to the council code of conduct?
Yes, please.
Perfect. So be respectful and courteous. Words, tone, and body language do matter. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. And then finally, the city council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And we already approved the agenda. Just want to note that. I know it's on here twice. So moving on the agenda twice. And so we'll move on to the agenda items. Agenda item number 1. First, I want to just thank our city manager's office and every single department. We see our department directors here and our chiefs. Just a total collective effort with our CIP. And before we begin, I just want to relay my heartfelt thanks for all your efforts. These are really visions. These projects are visions, some of them necessary projects as well. But these are the projects that will become reality one day, hopefully within 5 years. Our city, as we look around it today, to when I first started, this is my last CIP as the mayor. I can look around and see so many projects that have come to life. And when I look at these projects, I think of our departments and our directors and support staff, city managers, city attorney, everybody for their work in it. So it'll be a magical night. Let's go to our city manager, Stephen McHarris.
Well, yes, thank you, Mayor. I will read what the item is, and then I will give some brief remarks for all of you. This is to receive a presentation on the proposed 5-year 2023 through 2027 capital improvement program. And this is to provide feedback to staff. My remarks are really as follows. I want to say good evening to you, Mayor, and to the members of the City Council, also to the members of the public that are watching, and to our city staff, who I believe many of them will be watching as well. As you know, we kicked off the budget process for the next fiscal year on January 25th with our budget study session and discussing the preliminary fiscal year 2022 through 2023 budget. Tonight, we will continue that budget work with the proposed 2023 through 2027 capital improvement program. Now, we all know this as the CIP program. This outlines the city's 5-year capital investments, as the mayor was just referring to. Similar to past years, the projects in the first year of the proposed 5-year CIP will be shown as funded. However, projects in the subsequent 4 years may only be partially funded or not funded at all. In this CIP, we have identified unfunded needs amounting to $74 million, or about 1/3 of the 5-year CIP's estimated cost. In addition, we look beyond the 5 years. The total anticipated infrastructure need is estimated at $178.9 million. So as we look into the future, we find a total unfunded needs in excess of $250 million. Now, this is a staggering amount of future infrastructure needs, which is why we had the discussion in January about a strategy to invest more funds into infrastructure by changing our reserve policies. You may recall at our budget study session, we specifically addressed aligning the city's reserve policies as part of the fiscal year 2022-23 proposed operating budget. That was to start addressing long-term needs. That included technology, infrastructure, and other critical city programs and services. The council had also asked that several council referrals related to the CIP be covered in tonight's discussion. So with that, I'll be turning over the presentation to City Engineer Steve Erickson and City Manager Michael Silvera. They will be highlighting key CIP accomplishments and projects scheduled to be delivered in the near future. They will also provide an overview of the proposed 2023 through 27 CIP and the City Council referrals. And lastly, we realize the council would like to move some of the CIP projects along sooner than later. So we'll review options to accelerate some of the projects being discussed this evening. We've had a thorough presentation, or we will have a thorough presentation for you. And I'm looking forward to council discussion and your feedback. So, okay, if we can now bring up the PowerPoint, and Director Erickson will take it from here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Next slide, please. Tonight, we'll look at accomplishments from the engineering department and other departments for the capital improvement program for this last year. We'll look at work plan highlights. We'll look at the proposed 2023-27 capital improvement program. We'll review city referrals that were requested to be on the agenda tonight. We'll look at the engineering department's 5-year work plan and staffing. And we'll end with the council discussion and feedback. That said, Michael Silvera, the city's capital improvement program, will start the presentation. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you, Steve Erickson, for the introduction. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As Steve mentioned, my name is Michael Silvera, the CIP Manager. The next few slides, I will present the accomplishments of the capital improvement program this past year. Next slide, please. Engineering in coordination with the Parks and Recreation Department successfully completed the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. It's a visionary document that recommends enhancements to the city park system and explores recreation opportunities for the next 20 years. The planning department completed the General Plan 2040. The plan provides a framework that will guide decisions on growth, development, and conservation of open space and resources consistent with the quality of life desired by the city residents and businesses. Next slide, please. As a traffic calming measure, the traffic section of engineering department successfully completed the installation of 16 flashing beacons to facilitate safer pedestrian crossings and 11 radar speed feedback signs to reduce vehicle speeds to improve safety for motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists. Also part of this project, mobile radar speed feedback trailers were purchased and will be deployed on a monthly basis to high-volume vehicle and pedestrian streets. Next slide, please. The traffic section also completed the annual street resurfacing project, which included approximately 80 ADA curb ramp upgrades, street resurfacing in the neighborhoods near Piedmont Road and Landis, and the Milmont Drive area. Next slide, please. The city partnered with the city of San Jose to overlay Landis Avenue from Piedmont Road to 680, which are shown in the images to the left side of this slide. Also, engineering worked with Milpitas School District to widen McCandless Drive to eliminate a pinch point that was creating a traffic congestion in front of Matos Elementary School District, which is shown to the right of the slide. Next slide, please. Now I'll talk about the project scheduled to be completed in 22. Next slide, please. Fire Station 2 replacement is scheduled to be completed in the spring and is estimated to be operational by the summer. There are a few pictures that show the progression of construction, from foundation to framing to now the finished hallway of the station. Next slide, please. McCandless Park Phase 1 is scheduled to be completed in the fall. Phase 1 will construct the main core of the park. That includes all-inclusive playgrounds, a community and butterfly gardens, picnic areas with gazebos, dog play area, pathways, amenities, a restroom, and a utility shed. Following the completion of this phase, the construction of the sports field will begin, which should be scheduled to be completed in early 23. In addition, the city received a grant from the county of Santa Clara to build an all-inclusive playgrounds and associated amenities. All right. Aviso Adobe Park is a 20-plus year project that is entering its final phase to install If These Walls Could Talk program in the Adobe house. The project will install an auto video system and exhibits to show the history of the property and the city of Milpitas from the 1800s to present time. The project is scheduled to be completed this fall. The pictures shown on the slides are a few objects and images that will be placed in the Adobe house. Next slide, please. This coming year, various master plans and a specific plan will be brought to City Council for consideration. These plans will shape the city's communities and infrastructure for the next 20 years. The plans will be brought forward are trail, pedestrian, bicycle master plan by traffic section, sewer and water master plans by Public Works, Milpitas Metro specific plan by the Planning Department. Next slide, please. On August 9th, 22, City Council approved $4.4 million in ARPA funding for improvements to the park's infrastructure. The funding includes an estimated $2.1 million to address health and safety emergency repairs at 20 of the 36 parks, an estimated $1.1 million to address short-term improvements at four parks in critical condition, which are Sandalwood, Senate, Strithwa, Roth, and Starlight Parks. In addition, Council authorized an estimated $1.2 million to address short-term improvements for 6 parks in poor condition, which starts with the item Murphy Park as item 5, to item 10, Parcel Metro West, as listed to the right of the slide. In addition, $350,000 is needed to complete the short-term improvements for Hidden Lake and Oliver Jones North Park that are also considered in poor condition. I would also like to note for Sandalwood Park, the ARPA funding is only for short-term improvements. Engineer has completed the design for the complete renovation of the park, but the project was shelved due to a lack of funding. The funding needed to complete the renovation is estimated at $2.2 million. Next slide, please. Here are a few notable projects scheduled to be completed this year by Public Works. The first three projects on the list are part of the Energy and Water Savings Program. These projects will install automated water meters, water fixtures, and LED lighting throughout the city. Public Works will also complete an update to the city's Climate Action Plan, construction of the main lift pump station emissions odor control project, and conclude the street sweeping pilot program and report back to council later this year. Next slide, please. Now I will discuss the 5-year budget of the capital improvement program. This program is updated annually. The CIP, the Economic and General Forecast Fund Forecast. During January 25th at City Council Budget Study Session, staff reported that it does not foresee a reduction in current service levels based on new revenue, information, labor contracts, various funding, and expenditure strategies. A balanced budget is projected for fiscal year 22-23 and thereafter until the anticipated Measure F sunset. Staff also discussed the possibility of aligning the reserve policies to start addressing the aging and long-term city infrastructure needs, which are primarily supported by general fund. Recommendations to the city's reserve policies will be brought forward as part of the proposed operating budget process. Next slide, please. The City Council has adopted 7 priority areas as shown on this slide, and the CIP is completed in conformance with these priorities. Next slide, please. New projects and scope and funding changes to existing projects are requested by departments and are reviewed, prioritized, and ranked by the engineering and finance departments for conformance with council priorities, available funding, and resources. The prioritized and ranked project list is then discussed with the city manager's office for recommendations to the city council. The criteria for ranking the funding requests are listed here on this slide. I will pause for a few seconds for your review. Next slide, please. The 5-year CIP that is brought forward tonight consists of 175 projects for an estimated budget amount of $202 million. The estimate includes projects with insufficient or no funding, which is estimated at $74 million over the next 5 years. The chart is a breakdown of estimated costs with the associated number of projects for each category. Next slide, please. This table is a summary of the estimated project costs, available funding, and insufficient or no funding per fiscal year over the next 5 years. The top row shows the fiscal year, which is then followed by the total estimate project cost for a total value of $202 million, and then followed by an estimated available funding, which is estimated at $128 million. The bottom row is the value of insufficient or no available funding for the projects. As you can see, for fiscal year 23-24, funding needs of $9 million required to complete the estimated project cost of $49 million. The total funding needs over the next 5 years is estimated at $74 million. Next slide, please. Here is a summary of the proposed estimated costs for each category in fiscal year 22-23, which will be available starting July 1st. We are proposing to fund 38 projects for an estimated cost of $29.6 million. Approximately 70% of the funding will be dedicated to projects in the streets and sewer categories. Next slide, please. The next 4 slides are a list of the 38 projects that are being proposed to be funded this fiscal year. Each table shows the project, the recommending funding amount, and the proposed funding source or sources. Here are the 14 projects in community category being proposed to be funded. I would like to point out this year we are proposing 5 new community projects. Project number 1, Fire Station 1 module building replacement. This building was installed for Fire Station 1 operations while the new station was being constructed in the early 2000s. After completion of the station, the building has been used as the EOC office and meetings for training purposes. The building has reached the end of its service life and requires replacement. The GIS development and data collection will be a recurring project to upkeep, enhance, and maintain the city's GIS system, which is highly used by multiple departments and the public. The public safety mobile computer terminals. This project is to replace all computer terminals in police and fire vehicles over the next few years, which is essential to the day-to-day operations to the public safety in the field. The next project is the replacement of the auto video system in the council chamber. The aging system is unpredictable, technically obsolete, and doesn't meet the standards for our hybrid public meetings. The implementation schedule is for City Council summer recess in 2023. The assessment and design agreement will be forthcoming this spring for Council's consideration. And the last project I'd like to talk about is the Avac repairs and upgrades at the Public Works and Police Building. The project will address the temperature and comfort issues and resolve non-compliant outside air supply requirements. This project will be completed in 2 phases over the next few years. Next slide, please. There are 4 projects in the parks category being proposed to be funded in the amount of approximately in the amount of $1.3 million. Pause here for a few seconds for your review. Next slide, please. Here are 9 projects in the streets category being proposed to be funded in the amount of $8.5 million. We are proposing to add 1 new project in this category for the annual street resurfacing project for fiscal year 26 and 27. The estimate cost for that project is $4 million. So I'll give you a few minutes to review the project list here. Next slide, please.
Yeah, Michael, if I may, go back a couple slides for 1 second. One more before, right there, parks. Okay, great. Keep going back to where you were. Thank you.
Not a problem. One more slide. Thank you. Here are 7 water and 4 sewer projects being proposed to be funded. These projects are typically funded by the water and sewer funds. I'll give you a few seconds to review this list here. Next slide, please. Here is a summary of the funding sources used to fund projects in each category. The top row is a list of the major funding sources and is followed by the funding amounts. $5.2 million from the General Government Fund will fund the majority of the community projects. $3.6 million from the Task Fund will fund task-related street projects. $12.7 million from the Sewer Fund will fund sewer-related projects. Majority of this amount is to fund the city's contribution to the rehabilitation project at the San Jose wastewater facility. More than half of the streets-related projects will be funded by a street-type fund, which is typically a gas tax, Measure B, SB1, or street improvement funds. This is estimated at $4.9 million. The Water Fund will fund approximately 1.8 in water-related projects, and the last category column there, the other funds such as public art, midtown and public park funds, permit automation fee, community planning fee, will fund community and parks-related projects. Next slide, please. Here are 12 projects being proposed to be funded by the General Government CIP Fund for an estimated amount of $5.2 million. The funding will be used for 8 recurring projects, which is shown to the left, and 4 new projects that is shown to the right. Pause here for a few seconds for you to digest that list. Next slide, please. Now we'll look at the insufficient or no available funding in the CIP. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, there's a value of $74 million of insufficient or no funding available for projects in the 4 out years of the CIP. Here is a breakdown of the amount per category by fiscal year. Next slide, please. Beyond the 5-year budget, we are anticipating a funding need of $178.9 million. A project list is located in the back of the book under the section called Planned Projects with no funding. Here are a few examples of the projects. Under Community Improvements, building and site improvements at Fire Station 1, which is estimated at $7 million. Replacement of Fire Station 3, estimated at $20 million. Performing arts in a feasibility study to evaluate land acquisition and finance options and conceptual design, estimated at $500,000. Public Works Police Department facility improvements, estimated $26.6. And a new infrastructure need added to the section this year is an energy management system at City Hall for $3 million. This project is to upgrade controls for mechanical equipment for maintenance purposes. For the parks improvements, there are 17 parks in the need of renovation or improvements over the next 20 years, as identified in the recent adopted master plan. The funding need is approximately $70.5 million. There are approximately $3 million in street-related projects, and there are 3 storm drain pump stations built in the 50s that will need renovation or replacement for an estimated cost of $19 million. This project is typically funded by the General Government Fund. Public Works will be bringing the Financial Utility Master Plan for council consideration this year. The plan will identify utility infrastructures needed, which will be identified in the CIP next year. Next slide, please. With that, I'll give it back to Steve Erickson to talk about City Council referrals. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Nice job. Next slide, please. So staff is seeking council direction on the following 7 referral items. Specifically, if these items are being incorporated into the CIP and funded accordingly, So the first one is the railroad quiet zone. This was a concept that was brought to council about a year ago. We looked at estimating what the cost of safety improvements would be at the 10 rail crossings within the city. The initial study that is the required first step, based on discussions with the consultant working for the city of San Jose, that estimates approximately $300,000 for the initial study. Staff further refined the number of crossings to be studied down to 6 of the major crossings that have the heaviest rail traffic in the city. And we'll look at that on one of the next slides. The Rose Garden, the estimated one-time cost for that is $300,000 for design and construction, and then up to about $10,000 in ongoing maintenance, utilities, et cetera, depending on also future volunteer engagement. The Gateway welcome signs for the city. This is a project that's estimated between $100,000 and $600,000 per sign. However, this excludes purchase of right-of-way and any additional site improvements at each location that might be required. There's a pilot pickleball project that's being proposed. The estimated cost is between $50,000 and $75,000. There will also be a police substation proposed on city-owned Parcel 2 on South Main Street. Actual cost would be to be determined, and it would be estimated with the future adoption of the Metro Plan impact fee. There's a pilot pavement marker program. The estimated cost is $200,000. And then the landmark policy historic resources master plan update is also estimated at $200,000. Next slide, please. So as I stated, staff is seeking direction on this referral. The estimated cost to do a feasibility study, which is the first step, is $300,000. It could be funded through the general government CIP fund and traffic impact fees. We would focus on 6 crossings, which are the most heavily used crossings between Dixon Landing Road and Montague Expressway, to confirm the actual feasibility of turning these into crossings that meet the requirements of a quiet zone, and to actually determine the cost to install required safety improvements. Based on discussions with the consultant San Jose is using, the estimated cost to improve crossings ranges between 2.4 and 4.1 million each. So for 6 crossings, that's upward of $24.6 million to improve. The city would be responsible for all required rail safety improvements. Grant funding is not available for railroad quiet zones. However, federal funding may be available to partially fund crossing safety improvements. San Jose recently received $8 million in state funding as part of the state budget, which is Senate Bill 129. This would partially fund the quiet zone improvements that the city of San Jose is proposing within Japantown. San Jose will provide the remaining $5 million for the project. Next slide, please. Gateway signs. So gateway signage at key entry points around the city using the city's logo is the purpose of this item. This would be a multi-year project with a phased approach for installation, dependent on available funding and staff resources. The signage design and construction is estimated between $100,000 and $600,000 per sign, depending on the size of the sign and its location. In cases of purchase of additional right-of-way or site improvements may be required, and the cost for this is not included in the estimates I just mentioned. Staff would seek council direction as to priority locations, which would be in and around the State Route I-80, 680, State Route 237 gateways, also Montague Expressway, and smaller welcome signage would be located on local collector streets from the cities of San Jose and Fremont. If council decides to address 1 or 2 high priority key locations for signage immediately, staff will return with a funding source appropriate for the location. And the Main Street Gateway specific plan process will also identify locations for additional gateway signage specific to the Milpitas Main Street area. Next slide, please. So here's an example of the signage templates. You have the larger monument signs as well as the smaller signs that might be appropriate for some of the more local entry points from San Jose and Fremont. Next slide, please. And we also have a more robust signage that might be appropriate in some of the other areas of the city, such as maybe Main Street. Next slide, please. The pilot pickleball project at Gill Park. So council direction on January 25th of this year was to return with cost estimates for a pilot project. This pilot would utilize 2 handball courts at Gill Park that would be converted to a pickleball project or pickleball court. The scope of work includes the extension of concrete play surfaces to install full pickleball courts, resurface and restripe the court, installation of fencing, windscreens, and gates, miscellaneous maintenance tasks such as painting, signage, tree removal, irrigation, repairs, and replacements, as well as the purchase of portable nets, which would be stored on site. Next slide, please. So some highlights of this program would be staff would work with the pickleball representatives of days and times of court availability and volunteer program for net setup and teardown. Staff will conduct a quarterly assessments, including utilization, demand, and community feedback. The pilot program is estimated to cost between $50,000 and $75,000 and would be funded with ARPA funds or general government CIP funds. If the council would like to move forward, staff requests to receive council direction to return on February 15th this year with funding recommendations. If the project is approved, staff will return to council upon the completion of the 1-year pilot to report on utilization and community feedback. Next slide, please. Police substation on city-owned parcel number 2. On December 7th of last year, the city council received a staff report on recommended development of 3 city-owned parcels located at 1432 to 1488 South Main Street. Council directed staff to return with recommendations for parcels 2 and 3 after adoption of the Milpitas Metro Plan and expressed an interest in potentially locating a police substation in either parcel 2 or parcel 3. CIP project number 2011, which is the metro area substation, is in the proposed 5-year CIP and provides $1 million in funding for a police substation. While the existing buildings on parcel 2 and 3 are not likely suitable for a police substation, the new substation could be incorporated into future redevelopment of these parcels. The police department will continue to evaluate this, as well as looking at other locations in the city to determine the best location for their operational needs. Staff is seeking additional council input, if any, on the location of a new substation. Next slide, please. So to orientate you a little bit, this is South Main Street. The Pines is to the left, and we have 3 parcels, 1, 2, and 3. So parcel 2 and 3 would be potential locations for a new substation once those buildings are cleared for redevelopment. Next slide, please. The pavement marker program. So the Transportation Subcommittee requested the creation of a new pilot pavement marker program to install bot rumble strips on neighborhood roadways with a history of accidents. So a bot, as shown in the picture here, is a small circular non-reflective raised pavement marker, approximately 3/4 of an inch in height and 4 inches in diameter. And the purpose is to provide a vibration and auditory feedback to the driver through the car's wheels. Next slide, please. Bot dots have been shown to be effective in reducing accidents on high-speed roadways by warning drivers of curbs, crossings, and other hazards ahead. However, Caltrans has discontinued the use of bot dots because they dislodge in a short period of time, requiring frequent replacement. Per the Federal Highway Administration, Bot dots only contribute to a minor reduction in vehicle traffic speeds, estimated at less than 1 mile per hour. They are not recommended in residential areas due to the increase in traffic noise. And then depending on placement, they can create hazards for cyclists or other unintended consequences. So they're not recommended to be placed within intersections. The city or the county of Contra Costa and Oakland had started some pilot programs to install bot dots in different areas. However, the county of Contra Costa is not proceeding after an unsuccessful attempt last year. The city of Oakland is still in the pilot phase with bot dot arrays installed within several city-owned intersections at a cost of $5,000 per intersection to deter sideshows. However, Caltrans is not approving 2 additional locations that are actually within Caltrans right-of-way because the use does not, I should say, meet the recommended intent of that piece of equipment. Next slide, please. So Milpitas uses the Federal Highway Administration and the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices and Standards and Guidelines for implementation of traffic calming and traffic control measures to reduce driver confusion and minimize the liability of the city. This means that when we go out and install things in the street, like such as signage, striping, devices, etc., we make sure we're compliant with the recommendations and standards of these 2 guidelines. The following structural traffic calming measures are already currently deployed in the city. These include radar feedback signs at various locations, pedestrian warning beacons, international high visibility crosswalk striping, curb extensions, raised intersection tables to reduce vehicle speed, speed humps, narrowed vehicle lanes widths to reduce speed, green bike lanes to identify bike lanes to motor vehicle drivers, buffered bike lanes to separate cyclists from vehicle traffic, and police enforcement. Next slide, please. So the actual pilot program requested by the Transportation Subcommittee would be a year-long program. Again, it would install bot dot rumble strips at 5 neighborhood locations with a history of reoccurring accidents at an estimated cost of $200,000, and funding would be proposed through gas tax. Due to anticipated elevated vehicle noise, the pilot locations would include public outreach ahead of time. Noise levels will be measured, driver behaviors will be observed, and the cost for ongoing maintenance will determine the effectiveness of this program. A final report would be prepared and presented to the City Council at the end of the program. Next slide, please. Landmark Policy, Historic Resources Master Plan Update and Marker Program. So the city's current plan was last updated in 2011. The update to this Historic Resources Master Plan would include, would capture the existing inventory of historic resources, would create a plan for their preservation, would update city policy for both publicly and privately owned historic resources, would create a historic resource marker program, and explore potential funding.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing some feedback. If folks can mute their microphone for Mr. Erickson, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Carry on, sir.
Sure. So as I mentioned, this master plan update would also explore potential funding mechanisms for preservation. The update to the master plan is estimated at a cost of $200,000 and would be funding through general government CIP funding. Grant funding in collaboration with the public art program will be explored to offset funding from the general government CIP fund. The marker program cost for creation, installation, and maintenance is estimated at approximately $3,000 per year. And funding for a contractor may be required for the administration of the program compliance for any privately owned historic resources. Next slide, please. So the fiscal impact of these 7 council referrals is shown. This the new line there is under council referrals. The total, it's on the far right, is just over $1 million for all 7. As far as the general government CIP fund, the estimated cost is $575,000. This would leave a remaining balance in the general government CIP funding of about just over $1 million, $1,778,000. Street fund, the cost is estimated at $200,000, and other funds, the estimated referral cost is approximately $300,000. Next slide, please. So now we'll look at the engineering's 5-year work plan and staffing resources. Next slide, please. So the traffic section, which is in the engineering department, has several projects already underway, and these are the trail, bicycle, pedestrian master plan. We've provided updates to the city council in the past. The annual resurfacing program you're familiar with. They're looking at starting projects for a plan line for Costa with a city street on called Costa Street. It's parallels a portion of South Main Street. Also looking at a feasibility to install pedestrian bridges at the light rail platforms. We've started working with VTA on the Calaveras Boulevard widening project. The high occupancy vehicle improvements to State Route 237 are already underway. And we're also looking at starting 2 projects for a citywide traffic calming program, as well as a citywide traffic safety and assessment modeling program now that BART has done, and we're climbing out of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So the engineering department has been impacted, unfortunately, from a staffing shortage that started just before the pandemic. Department had an extremely heavy workload this last few years. We're working to replace Fire Station 2, McCandless Park. We're working on McCandless Well, the Calaveras Boulevard widening project I mentioned. Also a project to review city's ADA compliance for all its infrastructure. And we're wrapping up the final phase of the Alviso Adobe renovation. And so this heavy workload is contributed to retirements and resignations within the department, which has left us with some vacancies. However, we are anticipating starting the ARPA-funded park improvement projects and a required project for the renovation of 2 landscape lighting maintenance assessment districts, the one on McCarthy Boulevard and the other at along Las Coaches. So current staffing levels, however, do not permit the start of requested projects such as Dempsey Road waterline replacement, Cardoza softball fields, McCandless pedestrian bridge, city standard details and specifications update, Fire Station 1 modular training building replacement, and council referral items for at least 18 to 24 months from now, which may also require the delay of other projects. There is no capacity to start any anticipated utility master plan projects sooner than 48 months from now. Next slide, please. So looking at our current work plan, projects listed at the top in dark text are currently underway for over the 5 years. Parks in red are projects that we kind of anticipate starting. So in other words, again, projects in black are underway. Projects in red, we anticipate starting, and we show the fiscal year that we'd start those. So ARPA projects, we'd be looking at starting those fiscal year 2023 with current staffing levels. Next slide, please. So this slide just focuses on the projects, the new projects that could start with current staffing levels. So again, ARPA showing it could start in fiscal 2023 and would continue on for 3 years. Next slide, please. However, we do have a plan, a recommended plan for the acceleration of CIP projects through the addition of 4 additional engineering staff positions. So for the 4 additional positions would, 1, allow us to complete projects that are currently underway. It would allow us to start city council referral items in fiscal year 22-23. It would allow us to advance 8 new CIP projects by at least 18 to 24 months. Examples of this would be the Dempsey Waterline Project, Cardozo Park softball fields, design of the McCandless Park pedestrian bridge, and Fire Station 1 modular building. It also would allow the start of up to 4 utility improvement projects 18 to 24 months sooner. So the 4 positions being proposed would be a principal civil engineer, an associate civil engineer, and 2 junior assistant engineers. So this would be basically a CIP design team that would be tasked with knocking out a large slug of capital projects as well as council referrals. The total cost of the 4 positions is just under $1 million, and it would be funded 30% through general fund and 70% through the CIP. Next slide, please. An alternate option would be to add only two engineering positions. While this isn't the recommended option, we believe that the 2 additional staff positions would allow us to complete current projects underway, start city council referrals in fiscal year 23-24, so it'd be a year later, advanced only 4 new projects by up to 12 to 18 months. And again, examples of this could be Cardozo Park softball fields, McCandless pedestrian bridge. And again, we believe we could start 4 utility improvement projects from the master plan once it's completed. However, these would be out 36 to 48 months. So the 2 positions under this alternative solution would be 1 associate civil and 1 junior assistant engineer. The total cost for these 2 positions is about $452,000. Again, 30% would be funded through general fund and 70% through the CIP. Next slide, please. So this slide combines the existing staffing, which is the red X, what we could accomplish if we had 4 additional staff in yellow, and what would be accomplished, what we estimate could be accomplished with 2 additional staff in light blue. The list of projects are the new projects that could start. So you notice the change for instance, project number 2 there on the list, Dempsey Road Waterline. We'd be looking at being able to start that a year earlier. Cardozo softball field, we'd be able to start that in fiscal year 23 with 4 staff. However, with 2 staff, it would get pushed out to fiscal year 24 and so on down the list. Council referrals is at the very bottom of the list. So I'll pause here for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. You're pausing for us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, next slide, please.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd like this to provide feedback, I was just having some thoughts right now about this point of the presentation. I want to ask a question. Since you paused it, I would have just kept listening, but in terms of the proposed civil engineer hiring and a couple options there for those positions, are these permanent full-time employees that you're proposing?
Yes, if the council desires to hit as many projects as I listed in several slides before, which was the list of projects that are currently underway as well as a list of projects that could start. If the council's interested in staff completing that many projects each year, yes, it'd have to be full-time staff.
Great. And what if we clear, if we were to hire the staff and they cleared the 5 or more years of projects, let's say there's nothing coming in from city council referrals that are major, what would those full-time employees do? They are more of a addition to our current, we do have vacancies if folks left. I'm just trying to understand the organization in the department.
Right. So Michael showed earlier the value of the 5-year CIP, which is about $202.6 million in projects. So that's quite a bit to try to get done within 5 years. So, there is plenty of work. In addition, we pointed out that on the horizon of 6 years and beyond, there's $178 million in work that needs to be done. So, the city's infrastructure is aging. In some cases it's crumbling, and we're out there trying to keep it together. So there is plenty of CIP work for staff to pursue if that's the council's desire.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, hiring itself is a process. We all understand that here at City Hall. There's a lot of civil engineers out there in the region or across the state. Would it be a more time-effective option to contract a civil engineer from a private group to come in and help us with these, some of them one-time sort of projects?
We have had contract staff in the past within design and construction. It hasn't been as good of, it's been a little challenging working with consultants on the CIP side. So that would not be a recommended option. I have done it in my career. That it comes with challenges. It hasn't been a fantastic solution.
What if for seeing the whole list of projects? Let's go to Walter. I see you. Walter,
Good evening,
please.
Mayor and City Council members. I just would like to add, if the council desires for us to evaluate that possibility, we could definitely come back through the budget process with some options.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Deputy City Manager Walter Osborne. Always timely. I just want to kind of have a healthy discussion on the options. I think there's no better expert than our own engineers in-house, and but I do know there's a number of engineers out there, and maybe if there's one or two projects that are time sensitive to our city's safety or infrastructure safety or city council priority, perhaps that's one option we can explore. I'd hate to have you manage, let's see here, 10 different 10 different consultants, or even have consultants manage multiple projects. But perhaps if money allows and funding allows, we can perhaps explore one engineer to come in just to knock off a project. There's two things that come to mind, which is time. Actually, disregard. There's two things that come to mind. One is the bandwidth, and the second is the funding. And I hate to see our city have funding going forward here, and not having the bandwidth to try to get rid of one of these X's. And so maybe that's something we can explore. Perhaps one engineer of highest quality, lowest responsible bidder, sort of, however the agreements work. But that's just an idea I just want to float out there. But obviously funding is a challenge, so we better have the funding discussion first. Let's see, I have some other comments, but they're actually from an earlier point of the presentation. I think I'm going to wait till the presentation concludes just for me, but let's go to my colleagues for this point in the presentation. Pull up the Zoom, folks. All right, first, and members of the public, thanks for being with us. I want to check in with the Milpitas family. We got a list here, folks watching at home. Sure, you shared some links with your neighbors and friends. I know the pickleball folks are out. We are here, so we're going to get to your public comments shortly here after the presentation. Thanks for being with us. Much love. Okay, next up with the virtual raised hand, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I just have one quick question in line with your questioning about staffing. Mr. Erickson, can you please walk us through of your current staffing? Currently, how many engineers, can you do that briefly?
Right. So within the design and construction section, which is the section that puts out the majority of the capital improvement program, we have 6 engineers, not including the capital improvement program manager, Michael Silvera, who manages that section. So that section includes, I believe, 2 associate engineers, 1 vacant junior assistant, and then the remaining are junior assistant engineers as well. So a total of 6 staff working on the projects.
What about the rest?
What do you mean? The rest of
That's your staffing currently?
That's the staffing that puts out the majority of the design of CIP projects. They work in design and construction. Other staff within engineering, we have a traffic section. They have 3 staff. They put out some of the traffic-oriented projects. Land development engineering staff, they work on the private development side, projects associated with encroachment permits and the private development.
How many on the land development?
I believe there's about 6, and we have 1 vacant associate engineer. They are also impacted with workload.
Well, what's the on the engineering and traffic? What is the category? Master. Yes, I'm looking at your qualification in terms of your staffing qualifications. What is the senior engineer, master engineer, junior? What are the categories on the traffic one?
In the traffic section, we have 1 traffic manager who runs the section. We have 1 associate engineer and 1 junior assistant.
What about the land development one?
Land development has a principal civil engineer that runs the section. We have a vacant associate, right? We have 2 associate positions, 1 vacant. 2 junior assistant engineers and 1 engineering aide.
So you have a lot of vacancies.
Yes.
And you're asking on top of that for more positions, permanent ones?
I'm asking for a new design and construction team of 4 staff, in addition to the vacancy that I have in design and construction. Yes.
Okay. I'll ask more questions after when I go back to the projects themselves. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
No, absolutely. No, this is great. Just really absorbing information here. So I appreciate everybody's questions. Let's go here. And I'll say engineering has been right a lot of times. So much love to engineering here at the city of Milpitas. Next up, we have Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. So Steve, are those you said that those engineering positions, does that include the cost? Does that include their benefits, for the full-time, the cost on that?
I believe it is. Maybe
the PERS or all that you have that the employee has to contribute to PERS. Is all that cost, is that included in that projected cost?
I believe it is. That if I could get some assistance from the deputy city manager, if that's a fully loaded amount.
Because because 4
I'm being
full-time
texted it
positions,
is.
that's a lot of.
Yeah, these are fully loaded positions as budgeted, including the normal cost for pension, health costs, etc.
And what's the and what is that? I mean, if you disaggregate that from the employee salary.
How much the benefits cost is, I would have to refer to Lauren, our finance director. She knows it better than I do. If Lauren is available.
So I'm just concerned that it just adds to our unfunded liability. The more full-time employees you hire, the more you have to pay in that unfunded liability. So, yeah, if you can tell me how much that is.
Sure. If I may just add on to this, Vice Mayor, the unfunded liability, as CalPERS changed it about 3-4 years ago, I believe, is now a fixed amount. So regardless whether we have one person on staff or we have 400 people on staff, the cost is the same.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
Yeah,
more.
CalPERS changed the rule on this.
Oh, well, actually, that's pretty good that they changed the rule. Okay. Is she going to give me that?
She probably is looking it up right now.
Okay. All right. And in the interim, also the Dempsey water line project. I know every time that comes up every year on Dempsey Road. We're always, pumping a lot of money in there in that area. So I'm wondering, why are we doing that again? It seems to come up every year, that the Dempsey Road area. Even when I was on the city council way back when, we put a lot of money in there, and I'm surprised that we're still putting a lot of money in there still. Is there a reason for that?
So that project did start some years ago, and looking at different pieces of it: water lines, recycled water lines, sewer replacements, storm. So it was a big project. And when it was initially, the concept design was completed, it was like a $10 million project or something, just way over budget. No way we had the funding for it. So it was basically reduced in scope to a much smaller project. However, due to resources, it's basically been shelved. We haven't been able to get to it. We were asked to do other projects like fire station replacements and skate parks and other things. And we only have so many staff that we can only get so much out the door. So it's basically been paused until we receive resources to pick it up again.
Yeah. So yeah, the 4 additional positions, and then the Cardoza Park softball fields. And I know that when we do projects, sometimes we hire outside to do the design, different consulting engineers. Is there a reason why we can't do that instead of hiring a full-time employees?
Well, the city does use design consultants to do the design, for the reason that we aren't able to do the designs in the house. We just don't have the staffing. If we focused on doing the designs as well, there'd be far fewer projects we could get out. So we already supplement our engineering staff using design consultants that create the plans and specifications that we city staff then put out to bid and then manage during construction. So that entire project entails managing the design consultant through managing the contractor during the construction phase. So it's still, whether you're using a designer or doing the work in-house, there's still city staff effort involved in that project. So, like I mentioned, that the benefit of the 4 additional positions is being able to advance many of these projects that we're having to pause way out, be able to bring those forward and complete those as the council would like.
When you came up with this list of what was the process? Because when I see the well facility, that's not really something that is, we get our water from Hetch Hetchy, we get our water from the Valley Water, and the well facility, it's not really a pressing need. It's just a backup. So I'm just wondering why that's even on there, or it should be on the bottom of the list, or is this list a priority list?
It is, in the sense that due to the development, the city is required to continue delivering water service and come up with alternative sources, as well as sources of water for emergency use. In addition, the well facility projects are bond funded, so they do have a clock running when we have to have those finished. And that was approved several years ago by the city council.
Yeah, I just feel that could wait. I serve on the Valley Water Commission, and now they're raising the fees for water wells, and I'm pretty sure it's going to increase the fees for this one too. I just feel that one doesn't really need to be a pressing. We get our water, the residents get their water already from 2 sources, and that's just an emergency facility, facility. It's not like we need it now. Also, the light rail median landscaping, I strongly feel that VTA needs to pay for some of that cost. Right, it's right there on Great Mall Parkway. And our maintenance facility is the ones that do all the work, and it just seems that since it's not even our property, it's VTA property. I think that needs to change, and also the type of landscaping where it doesn't need high maintenance. We could really save costs by working something with the VTA, maybe 50-50, some type of deal. Because right now, we are spending a lot of money for landscaping, and I'm just thinking that that's something that needs to be done. And then on the, I'll ask another question. I have a question on the SP's 269, the quiet zone, but I'll ask that later in a different time, towards the end.
Vice Mayor, if I may respond to the one item, the light rail median landscaping. The city actually does own the Great Mall Parkway medians. Those are city-owned property that were purchased way back in the early 90s when the city and VTA widened Great Mall Parkway. The VTA has an easement for their aerial structure. There was an agreement that was completed by the city and VTA back during the light rail phase, where the city did receive some funding for the ongoing, I should say, improvement or landscaping of those medians. And so we did do that project a couple of years ago between, I think, Montague Expressway and about Elmwood facility. We constructed that landscape improvement that it is the city's responsibility to maintain. The last segment or gap in the landscaping is the piece on Capitol Avenue, just in front of the new BART facilities. That's the remaining section that the city would like eventually to try to improve.
Yeah, I just maybe me going back to VTA and saying, hey, let's share the cost, even though we own it, but light rail benefits from it. VTA benefits from it. So anyway, you can carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. And I'll go to Mr. Erickson here. How many more slides do we have? I'm curious to know. And why are we?
I think we're close to being done.
Okay, I was just wondering why we're stopping at this point. But I'm just going to go ahead and take this moment to go over my items. I want to talk about the Dempsey Road Waterline Project 7118. It's a complicated project. I've met with you and the city manager to discuss it. There's a lot of dynamics involved with that project. My key concern, whether it's water line or resurfacing of Dempsey Road, is between my old neighborhood I grew up in, the intersection of Selwyn to Yosemite. Does the water line go through that portion of Dempsey Road?
It's been a while since I look at it, Mayor, but as I recall, it's on the northern area. It's about where that shopping center is, just beyond the Caltrans facility, south crossing Yosemite Drive.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'm concerned the road has been the same or worse since when I started, and I can pull up all the CIPs we have approved in years past, and there's a lot of reasons why nothing has happened there. These are, when I was growing up there till now, low-income folks, and I always hate to hear when folks are driving through town and they hit a bump and some rims blown or rims bent, tires blown, and I think it's just a little bit of an injustice. So I think that for the Dempsey Road Waterline Project, instead of its entirety, as we discussed in a meeting some time ago, I'd like to see that project go from Selwyn to Yosemite. Anything north on Dempsey, north of Dempsey and Selwyn can be, sort of calculated at a later time. Let's go to our deputy city manager. That's Walter.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, indeed. And I recall the conversation we've had. I think what's important to understand that the project you see in front of you is just additional work. It's not what Steve had before, the black axis. Maybe just somebody could go up the slides, maybe 2 or 3 slides, please.
Yeah, let's go to the let's go. Yeah.
I think that's important for the council to see. One more. There we go. I think this is the entire picture where engineering staff is working on the black axis. They're in progress with existing staffing resources. And then we have the dish ones below. And really, the conversation is obviously there's a cost attached to those positions. I totally understand that. We just want to understand from the council what you desire to deliver some projects, to accelerate the delivery of some projects. And of the new ones, obviously the council prioritized the ARPA funding. The reason why we're doing this is because of the deadline. We have to spend the money, encumber the money by 2024. And there was a desire to address the safety and health issues. And the McCannell's Well facility, I do want to reiterate what the city engineer Erickson said. And that is, there's bond money attached to this. And unfortunately, we need to spend this money by a certain date. Otherwise, we have to give it back to the bondholders. So that's what the deadline is driving there. We can look where we can reallocate some of this bond funding to other projects like the Dempsey Road. We would have to figure this out.
Great, thank you. No, I appreciate each of you everybody for laying out the path to getting these done and sort of the requirements and requisites along the way. So I want to recommend to the city council tonight for city staff to bring back to the next CIP meeting the Dempsey Road project from Selwyn to Yosemite, right past the old Indian Hills apartments in Edsel, all that Dempsey right there. I want to bring that back. Let's get a cost estimate on that. Not the whole stretch of Dempsey, but let's have our city staff bring that back. Let's get a cost estimate. That item has just been on the CIP for too long, and it looks like it's going back even further. And really, there's no reason for it. There's really no reason for it. If there's funding, if we can determine funding, then let's go ahead. That is my ask from my council to bring back the Dempsey Road Waterline Project modified from Selwyn to Yosemite. Let's get that water line going. We got that water bond we took out. Possibly some gas tax to resurface it. Let's get creative. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. In previous CIPs, we had an exploration of a CIP project on the corner of Mount Shasta and Park Victoria. I just want to circle back around with Mr. Erickson to see where that's at and if it's still an item of discussion. We did approve that on the 5-year plan recently. Just want to get an update on that one. I don't have the project number. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah,
fault.
Mayor, we'd have to look at that. I don't recall a project at Mount Shasta and Park Victoria. Was it a street resurfacing project, or?
I think it was more of a
recall
traffic calming measure. We were looking to possibly do a traffic study due to resident complaints. We recently had an auto versus pedestrian there, where one of our residents got admitted to a hospital. But that's all I'll say about that. But that is an intersection that was on the CIP. I could pull up last year's CIP. I know it didn't disappear. Maybe I'm seeing things, but would love to see that in light of a recent auto versus pedestrian we had. So also the intersection of Tramway and Milpitas Boulevard as well on that windy road. Perhaps we can adjust some dots over there. It's a windy road at a higher speed of, I think, 45 miles per hour. So there's a pedestrian crosswalk that leads to Hidden Lake, and perhaps we can put some dots there. I'm gonna go with my next one here, and I'm gonna follow up with all these. I have everything noted, been taking a lot of notes lately, but the next one's the annual tree replacement. Can we get a check-in perhaps with Public Works? How's the tree replacement sort of management going? And also, folks go on My Milpitas, or they'll call it in to report trees that are in bad condition. I know it rained a lot in December. Perhaps we need to take a double look at it. I know in years past, we did have an agenda item that wasn't during the budget cycle for an additional $150,000 for the sort of what do they call the tree thing? The arbor. Someone help me out. Arborist, is that what it's called? So I just want to check in with Public Works. Do we have a huge backlog that of tree maintenance or replacement that this annual tree replacement fund may not be able to manage for a fiscal year? Hey, Tony.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. So thank you for that question. Regarding our tree maintenance, we do have the My Milpitas app, which we use to manage our trees. We have a contractor that we have on board that does our preventive maintenance work, and our city staff works through all the reactive work that happens. So we do have that being managed by the staff. I don't have the backlog with me today on where we are with those requests, but we can certainly get that to you. But regarding the tree planting, which is the focus of the CIP that's here, we do work through on the annual basis, looking at our urban forest management plan that we had developed. And we do find ways of looking at areas where we can do new plantings in the city. Our target is to get 75 new trees put in place. These include replacements as well. There is an effort that we're also doing right now where if we have a tree that we encounter that has just given us a lot of issues in the past, we do work through replacing those into the system. So part of this effort, which you see with the CIP, goes with paying for the replacement of these trees that are just aged out, because trees do have a life cycle of their own. But we also want to find opportunities per our urban forest management plan, but also in conjunction with the climate action plans that will be coming to you later on this year, to find ways of increasing the tree canopy in the city, which goes towards our climate action plan goals.
Great, thank you very much. And so I'll make the request for a list of, really a brief report of the tree management or replacement requests through My Milpitas app or 586-2600. I just would love to get an eye on the number of trees that are being that are in need by of attention by our residents. So I'll look forward to that the next CIP meeting that we have. Thank you. I want to move on to another thing, the City Council Chamber AV system replacement. I'd like to remove that from this year's funding. Been in that chamber for a long time, and I know the technology is getting dated, and we are making do. But I do think that's not a priority. Technology can really disrupt a lot of costs, and I sit here on the Zoom. I think it's free, but the chamber is the audio video is just, I know that $1.3 million can last and stretch for how long, but with technology evolving every single day, one day we might be in the metaverse, I don't know, but I think right now, in really the worst of the pandemic and this recession that I'm so sad to be in for our city and our world, I don't think I'm comfortable with supporting for this year the $1.3 million for the AV system replacement. What technology will come out tomorrow? So maybe let's slow down and take a look. $1.3 million is a lot of money, and I'd like to look at my colleagues' projects and to perhaps manage that $1.3 million to be impactful for other projects. I do think we will make do without a brand new City Council Chamber AV system. I look at the state capitol, they're using dated technology. It's different, but that's my recommendation to the council. I want to talk about the fire station. I try to make these all quality comments. I appreciate folks bearing with me. Public safety is key. Measure F. We did it. Looking forward to the future, but I just want to check in on Fire Station 1. We do have the ambulance coming back online in July, I believe. Can I get confirmation on that?
I'm not sure the fire chief is here. I'm sure he is. Do you want to speak to this, Brian?
Yes, Mayor, Council, Brian Sherrard, your fire chief. Yes, we started our recruit academy today, and we are planning to have the ambulance go into service probably closer to August, since the academy doesn't end until into July.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're excited about that. And in terms of the quarters, I believe there are plans for the ambulance quarters for personnel. Can you share with the council more details?
Right now, the plan is to have them go into fire station number 1, and we have limited dorm space there. And so there is a potential that we will move around our apparatus and either house the ambulance at the new fire station number 2, or move some of the current staffing that's at station 1 over to station 2 to accommodate the ambulance crew.
Thank you very much. Now, in terms of having appropriate quarters or adequate quarters, I want to make sure we see that on the CIP really within 5 years or even sooner. I'd like to request for staff and at the recommendation to my council to bring back that line item for the quarters for the ambulance related to the ambulance so that we can see it. Public safety is paramount. I called dispatch today to report something actually. So one more thing with the fire department. I appreciate you, Chief. In Station 1, there's a dorm room. There's discussions to add a window. Can you provide the council more detail, please, Chief?
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. We have been working with Public Works, and we have had some setbacks as far as the contractors and some of the ordering of the window, which has delayed the project, but we're still moving forward with adding a window, which will make the room that you're speaking of legal for people to sleep in it, because it adds the additional window, which is a secondary means of egress for them.
Okay, great. And if we requested the recommendation to my council, if you can bring back that information, I'd love to see the line item on the presentation at least, so that the council can make considerations for our public safety. I'll take a break here. I just want to say you guys are doing a great job. Everybody, guys, gals, everybody, it's really a 99% awesome CIP. I flipped through it carefully and deliberately. I want to give a kudos to everybody. It's, even with all the council feedback, I do think it's a 99% awesome. And obviously the council and our city staff have to come together to make it 100. And I just think it's going to be a beautiful thing again. So I just want to take a moment to thank everybody. With that being said, just a couple more things really quick. These are lighter ones. The gateway signs, that's pretty unique. I just want to put in my feedback. Perhaps we can partner up with our private property owners off the freeway, commercial properties, like a golf land. Perhaps, folks can jump on CoStar and call the person, the owner on record, and just ask them if they'd like to partner. We've had older signs in Milpitas over on Montague. The old Milpitas sign, folks remember that one, right? Perhaps that can save us money as well, so that we don't have to deal with sort of the property rights and real estate stuff. Also with the gateway signs, I'm sure it's already in there somewhere, but I just wanted to really say it for the record. We go to all these great cities across America. And what's common is you see these partnerships related to the gateway signs. You see these partnerships with their local Rotary. And I think that would be pretty neat. for our city to have. As we know, the Rotary is everywhere. And let's get a Rotary sign up, and perhaps the Rotary can assist with the funding and the effort. And, it can be a great partnership. I can't name how many cities across the state of California. I spent a lot of time driving up and down the state during the pandemic. I went up to the North State and was up at Shasta and Redding, drove the North Coast all the way down, and just taking visual notes, mental notes of all the great cities up there. And their funding's not like ours, but they have these really peculiar and unique things they do to their city to make it at home. And I just want to bring Milpitas in line with some of the things I've seen in other cities. So the gateway signs don't have to be just, by the way, those gateway signs, whoever did them, they look beautiful on the slide. They look absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's perfect, all of them. But I think based on the slide, if council wants to put up one or two smaller ones just to get it going. Yeah, there it is. Folks, sorry, pickleball folks. I know I'm taking a long time, but yeah, take a look at these gateway signs. It is just beautiful. So kudos to our staff again. Pickleball folks, members of the public, I got so much. My heart is very full right now based on what we're seeing tonight. So, and that's it. So I appreciate your time, and I look forward to my request being met tonight or at the next CIP meeting. Let's go to our next virtual raised hand. Vice Mayor, I'm gonna have to ask you to lower your. Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay. And next up with the virtual raised hand, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First and foremost, I want to thank staff for your commitment and for your time. I know that staff capacity is an issue, and it has been an issue. And I had no doubt it was going to be an issue about 2 years ago with a number of requests that have been coming in. I've been very vocal on this council, and we are seeing those consequences at the CIP. With that said, I do want to thank you for the park, for putting those projects in here. I would, if we could somehow try to find funding to fund those other two additional parks, which I believe is $350,000, which I know that funding is tough, but I do not want to leave those parks behind. I know that Sandalwood Park needs a lot of money. So thank you for doing those improvements. Personally, I have been spending some time with local law enforcement agencies, not only the one that I work in, but in other cities in regards to the BOT program. It's definitely not something anybody recommended. They said that they have not seen any study that has implemented, and staff has shown that today. So I personally don't feel that's a traffic calming necessity or anything that has shown that it's going to work here in the city of Milpitas, especially if we look at our big issues. I know that I am very interested in looking for at the recent events that we had, unfortunately, collisions and even a death with those traffic signs, those like an actual traffic sign. The streets are too long. And so for me, that's where I would like to put some focus in, if that's something we could bring back to the CIP. Not too sure where that's at. I just know that that's something the community has been telling us. We've already had another death, and I don't want to feel like I can't say I haven't said anything. So I definitely want to make sure that we look at that if we can, staff. I would appreciate that. Personally, I mean, I showed my support and my request to implement an immediate pickleball project, and I will continue with that. I think that the funding is pretty something that we could do, especially since we have the ARPA funding. So I look forward in supporting that. Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua, for bringing the pilot program. Definitely looking forward to doing something permanent, as I had stated before. In terms of the landmark, I think those are really important, even if we did one or two. Personally, I'm part of the Rotary. We don't have a lot of money. But I'll let our personnel and our voice speakers speak on that. All I know is that I think we should actually be adopting the Rotary versus asking them to fund it. So I would love to see the Rotary signs as well as other organizations that are very similar, like the Rotary here in the city of Milpitas, like our Lions Club as well, who does a lot of work. I think that it would be something special for us to say thank you to the service. And I know I'm missing a couple, and please, I apologize for that, but I know that there's a couple service clubs in Milpitas that just do so much for us. Kiwanis is another one that does a lot. And so I would like to include their symbols if possible. Just like the mayor said, we see it all over the state, and I wouldn't want to ask them to pay for it. I would just want to include their signs if that's possible. In terms of the audio, the updates, the audio updates for the city council chambers, I also feel as much as I want to, I think we've seen the worst of this pandemic. And I just personally would not support doing that project. I would though support the additional funding if we had it for staff, for those 4 additional. Staff capacity is an issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue in the number of requests that this council continues to put on the list. What I see is it's just really pressuring staff. And I want to see these projects done because they're all very important, especially the softball fields. I mean, all of them are just equally as important. The pickleball, the softball fields, you know, those updates, Solon Park updates are really important. Again, it's building that equity lens in neighborhood, as well as Hidden Lake and the other parks that unfortunately didn't get funding. So for me, as one council member, I would like to try to, I don't know if you guys can move the slide over to the list. But there's one more that I think I failed to write down, but I would appreciate that. Perfect, thank you. So yeah, so I think the repairs, the AV system replacement is something that I think we could wait on. Personally, I feel that our staff is doing the best that they can, and they need bodies, and we're not going to be able to get anything done without bodies. And so I stand reaffirm my commitment to making sure we get bodies. And so I want to thank our staff now for continuing to pick up that work. I know it's not easy. I know it's extremely hard. I know it's easier said than done, especially when it comes to a project. It looks so much easy on the surface, but once you start taking that project apart, there's so many elements. And so I do want to try to support and see how we can make the request, Steve, with those 4 additional staffing at full time. I do not support outsourcing, and I want to be very clear with that for a lot of different reasons. Outsourcing, you get what you pay for. And if we're going to invest so much money, I want to make sure that it's done right and that it's part of our team and that they're part of our Milpitas family. I do think there is a difference when we outsource, and we have seen that. It works in some places. I definitely have never seen outsourcing work completely 100%, and our staff has shared that today. So I will stand with the staff request and their expertise, because at the end of the day, none of us are experts. Our staff are the experts. We may have some experience in each work in different capacities, but I definitely do not consider myself an expert in engineering. And so I want to give that expertise to our staff, who I know are putting our Milpitas families first. In terms of traffic calming, again, I do not support the bots. It's not shown a proven practice, and I have not seen any research that shows that they do mitigate traffic. They may look good, but they start to, the investment that goes in, as we saw today, is not something that's sustainable. So I would rather have a sustainable traffic mitigation, again, like a traffic light or something that works a little better. And so with that, I will go ahead. I have a couple more comments, but Those are, in terms of the well facility, I support it, and I'll tell you why. The time that I was on the water task force, we actually did a really good field trip. Remember that, Councilmember Chua, when we sat together on that? And they explained perfectly why these projects are so important. And even if we have the two water streams, what happens in an emergency, and we've seen during the pandemic what happens if we're not prepared. So that well facility is really, really old, and it's something that needs to be up and ready for that emergency. And as well as that Dempsey Road water line. I know that's a little complicated in terms of project, but it is something that I do feel that needs to happen. These are the projects that they may not, a lot of government entities call them the sexy projects, right? We may not be able to see these projects, maybe like any other projects, like a fire station or something that actually comes up. But when we see it is when there's an emergency and we need that resource. And unfortunately, that is something that I don't want to witness, because then it's too late. So I want to be implementing preventive measures, especially if staff is bringing it back up. So with that, I'll go ahead and leave my comments. Like I said, in terms of the police substation, I don't support it, and I'll tell you why. Staff has shared that's not one of the parcels. None of those parcels are adequate for a police substation. I shared my feedback on this when this came up. Putting a police substation is not a full substation, and my concern is that we will have staff capacity issues there, that even if we have a substation there, we actually have had, unfortunately, 2 incidents that are less than 2 blocks from our current police station. They were some of the most heinous crimes we have seen in the city of Milpitas. And unfortunately, the police station being present did not deter. So that is something that I have been stating over and over again. Just because you have a police station there, that doesn't mean that you're not going to see heinous crimes. And we have seen that happen in Milpitas, unfortunately, in the last couple of months. So I don't want to see money wasted. Instead, I would like that money to be invested. And of course, it doesn't cross over sometimes because of funding. I would rather support our staff department, our police department with staffing, but I don't want them to worry about staffing a substation. And I want to leave that expertise to them again. It does not sound like any of these parcels are adequate places for them. So I will not be supporting that. And so with that, I'll go ahead and wait for the end of the presentation for my additional comments. But again, thank you so much, staff. I'm with you with staff capacity. If we want things done, we need to increase the staffing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a follow up on Councilmember Dominguez. Let's go to Mr. Erickson. If we can review the history of the police substation project that was approved in previous CIPs. I think to the tune of $950,000. If we can get a history on it for the council and public's benefit at this project that's really not new. It's been on the CIP. Mr. Erickson.
Right, Mayor. From my recollection, the project originated a few years ago when the TASP or metro area was expanding a little more, and it was desired to have a substation down within the TASP area. And so, it's just been on the books. Staff has been looking for a suitable location. So that's my recollection and history. If there's more information you desire, we could bring it back at the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll request a little bit more of a history at the next meeting. Totally fine. That's what these meetings are for. Appreciate it. And when folks were designing the TASP, sorry if I said task or TASP. Sorry. When folks were designing the TASP, who knows, 20 years ago, throughout the process, folks advocated for a school for the children, and folks advocated for public safety with the BART station and thus the police substation. I think our city's public safety strategy is in line with a substation. for the task, which is the highest density area in our city, the highest concentration of residents. And so I think it is key with rising crime. I can't tell you how many times my Ring app goes off. We have Amazon Prime package concerns over in McCandless, and we go through there and talk to folks. And so it's really a strategic location. I know Jerry's. I went over to Jerry's, folks. Went over to Jerry's on South Main, talked to the business owner, small business owner, and they had to replace a couple of their doors. But I think folks, Pines, shout out to the Pines. They're really looking forward to some public safety on the south end. And fortunately, the city council made a tremendous decision to not sell parcels 2 and 3. One of the best decisions this council has made, not to sell parcels 2 and 3 there. And whether one of those buildings or structures are renovated, retrofitted, or demolished with the new construction, there's some options to go there. So, but I look forward to, there's a summary page in the former CIPs. I really should have printed out all these projects from years past. That's my fault, but we'll take a look at that the next meeting for folks' concerns. But having been there, I continue to support the substation, and we'll see what the votes look like tonight. Perhaps we may need to have a vote on it, but let's see here. I do see public comment. Mr. Ballsbaugh, we're going to wait just a second. We're almost done capturing the council's input, and then we're going to go straight to our residents, our Milpitas family. Next, with the virtual raised hand, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for your comments. I do want to share that I personally have felt you were gaslighting my intelligence, and I just want to bring it up to your awareness that what I meant was I support a substation. I don't support a substation in parcel 2 and 3 for the comments that have been placed not only by staff, but also I just don't feel like we have been able to get enough research that shows that a substation there would be the best place suitable. I am very aware of the tasks. I've been a resident of Milpitas for over 20 years, and I've been following that project very, very closely. The substation at some point was going to be part or very close in partnership with the BART station. And so I remember those conversations on how the task area came. I do believe the task area does need support in their safety. However, I just want to give that expertise to the chief. I am not a chief of police, and neither you or myself or anybody else is on this council. We don't have those credentials. And so for me, that parcel 2 and 3 would be more suitable for an open space park. I definitely think there is a substation that may be needed, but on the other end of the task and not necessarily on this road. And we literally saw how there was a massacre pretty much around the corner from the main police department. So that tells us that just because you have a substation, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have crime. Does that mean that it's going to deter it? Absolutely, if it has staff in it. Again, my prime concern is we're facing staff capacity issues. Research shows, and I just want to share, there is research out there that just got disseminated about 3 days ago that shows that most cities are going to have more than 60% of their staff eligible for retirement. That means there's going to be a huge turnover. And in fact, it would be great, staff, if we could get those numbers from Milpitas, because if we're facing staff capacities now as an issue, and if that is true for the city of Milpitas, we're going to be facing a bigger need of staff, and we're going to be seeing a bigger issue with staff capacity. And the first place that staff capacity usually hits is our police departments. So that is the reasoning behind my statement. Again, I support a substation if that's what the chief feels he needs, as long as it's staffed. I don't feel an empty substation would serve us any well. And again, just my own personal opinion, I'd rather have an open land and open park in these parcels. So again, I just wanted to share that information. Gaslighting, I know it's hard, and I know we just went through a bias training, and the bias training just said, just bring it to awareness if it happens. So I'm kindly bringing it to your awareness that it's not my lack of intelligence that I don't understand the task. It's just that is my personal opinion based on the feedback from the community and the research that I have gathered. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, next up we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Let me lower my hand before I forget. Thank you, Mayor.
I was going to remind you.
So on the railroad quiet zone, I wanted to ask staff, have we already applied for some of these grants? You mentioned that the city of San Jose had applied for the SB 216, I think it was, grant.
No, staff hasn't applied for any grants or started any work on this, as it's not a CIP project.
Okay. Well, yeah, but it's been, I think we used to have a grant writer. I'm wondering, do we still have one that, or is it just your department that applies for these grants?
The city no longer has a grant writer, and in the past, if a grant affected a capital project that the engineering department was working on, yes, engineers would do that work as part of their project.
Okay, so that if this is approved, then I guess you'll start asking for grants. Also, I do like the fact that I do like all these projects here on the city council referrals, and I do believe that we do need to hire more staff. If we want to get these projects done, we do need to increase the staffing. It's one of those trade-offs that we need to do. And I do like the fact that now the PERS has changed their funding requirements, so that, which is really good. The other question I have is the street sweeping pilot program. I know that was really successful, but I didn't see any money on that in the street improvement projects. Is there a reason for that?
I would defer to the Public Works Director on that. That project is actually under Public Works.
Vice Mayor, thank you for your question. So we're brief with the answer on that one there. We still need to bring back the recommendation. So we're wrapping up the final 1 year of the pilot, and we have to bring that back to council first for their consideration. We'll talk about the success of the program first. At that point, how we move forward will be up to council direction. So that's why there's no additional funding being requested at this time.
Okay, so that will be for the next funding source.
It could be council direction at that time, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. I want to follow up to the Vice Mayor on the funding for the engineering department. I'm a huge fan of the engineering department, and I think I have a lot of confidence in the engineering department over all these years. I'm going to support the recommendation by Mr. Erickson for these additional positions to get these projects going and to alleviate the workload and really to expand the bandwidth. It's just my concern that these positions may go unfilled and the money ends up being a part of the surplus at the end of the fiscal year or following the fiscal year when the final numbers are in. I want to really ensure that all our funded positions are filled. I reached out to the city manager not too long ago to ask for a report, and I know the labor is in short supply, and I can't debate it. I really can't, nothing to say. But let me check in with Mr. Erickson. I believe you're going to be hiring these candidates. How are you feeling about the hiring process?
Well, I mean, for the last couple of years, it's slow, not only on the public side, but also on the private side, unfortunately. So, I mean, if we are approved to hire new positions, we're not going to sit on that. The engineering department is going to work with HR and try to fill those. Unfortunately, I don't have any control about the number of people that can apply. But the hope is that we will find some quality candidates. I guess I should add, while I was thinking while you were speaking, that even on the consultant side, as far as trying to get a consultant in, we've issued RFPs for help within the land development side, and have not had any contractors apply. So there is a slowdown in the workforce, unfortunately.
Yeah, everywhere, and it's discouraging. It's talk of the nation. I just don't want to get too much into it, but maybe a nationwide search. I know when I was over at VTA, Vice Mayor's there now, but I met a lot of engineers over at VTA. They're coming from all over the country, and it just really showed it's when I think about the strategy of our sort of funding here tonight, I just, are we putting money where it's going to be most impactful? And I think for tonight, I'm going to have faith in Mr. Erickson and the engineering department to get it done somehow, some way. But we will be monitoring it, and perhaps we can get an email from the city manager to show our new hires. I know the police department's been great with that. After all the retirements that we've had over at the police department the last few years, we have a really great, if I may say, new candidates and lateral transfers over at the police department, and just really filling up every position. It's really a new era over at the police department. So if we can get the hiring updates, that's the one thing I'll ask, if I'll support the funding for these additional capital improvement positions. Just if we can get updates on the hiring and welcoming, we'll do hails for folks coming into Milpitas. So next up with the virtual raised hand, we have Councilmember Fan.
Good, thank you. I agree with my colleagues on not going forward with the AV upgrades in the chambers. I think that can be deferred later down the road. It's not an immediate priority, at least in my view. In terms of the dot bots, I do have reservations about that, chiefly because of the failed pilot program from one of the other municipalities. I'd like to see some more progress in the technology as it improves first. It's not to say that I'm not open-minded about it, but I don't want us to be experimental with it here at this time. In terms of public safety, I do support public safety 100%. I, however, think that it might be in our best interest to use our dollars towards public safety in a different way. I believe that there's probably more benefits to increasing patrol rather than that of the physical presence of a station. And lastly, in regards to the staffing request by engineering, I'll just be very brief. I won't be supporting the staffing request.
Great. Yeah, it's with such a diverse council, so many different positions. It's wonderful. Next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Chan. I'm also concerned about the staffing request. The reason for that, like Vice Mayor brought up, is our unfunded liability is 58 million for miscellaneous and 112 million for safety. Those are $170 million liability for the city. So this is my request. I want to have the executive team to come up with a presentation on how exactly the growth of these liabilities, unfunded liabilities. I want to see how are we adding to this fund? How are we paying off? How are we adding? We need to see that to make a better decisions on some of these requests, because those are pensions forever of retired employees or former employees, and we need to explain this to us. I don't understand it really well, and I also want our residents to understand what that unfunded liabilities are. So that's my request. Before I make a decision on staffing, I want to be clear on the unfunded liabilities. I also agree with most of you, my fellow council members, on where is that? About the upgrade of our chambers. But on the other hand, I would like to see right here, the 1.3, I would like to put an amount for detailed specification exactly what is that 1.3. So we need to put some money there to do the detailed specification. Maybe we can phase it in, not get hit with 1.3 right away. So that's one thing, because we're gonna need it someday, but we need to know what we're funding and how long the longevity of this technology that we're funding for 1.3 million. I also agree that I am ambivalent, to be honest. I'm on the fence for that police station substation. We need more details about that. And also that should come from the police department on the need before we even fund that one. And this is my question. When I ask about the ARPA 4.3 million plus, I asked specifically if the soft and the hard costs are included, and the answer was yes. The design and constructions are included in the 1.4. And now we're asking for staffing. I don't get it. Mr. Erickson?
I'm sorry, Councilmember, my internet cut out, so I wasn't hearing the entire question. Can you repeat that, please?
Well, I asked this when we were doing the last council meeting, when we were talking about the budgets, and I asked specifically if the $4.3+ million includes soft and hard costs. And when I mean soft and hard costs, the design and the construction of those parts, 12 parts. And the answer was yes. And now there is a request for staffing. I don't get it.
So yes, if we could go back to the slide that shows the 5-year work plan with the work that we're currently doing and the other projects that are in red that we're planning to start. If I could see that slide. Now keep going forward with the 5-year plan.
Steve, maybe you can tell them the slide number.
Yeah, I'm looking that up. Slide 50, please. Right. So again, this slide shows the projects that we're currently working on at the top of the list in dark or black text. The projects in red are what we have in plan to start. The ARPA projects, as I mentioned, with the current staffing we have, we're planning to start that in fiscal year 23. And so, you know, we will do that. The other projects, as I've mentioned, we've pushed out due to one, lack of staffing, but also that the ARPA project is a priority, as well as the well facility because it's bond funding. So those are what we're going to focus on first. Other projects are going to be pushed out.
So Mr. Erickson, so the black, this one, the black ones, printed ones, the colored black ones, this is what you're currently doing now and plan to do until 2023, correct? Next year.
Correct.
And there are
Correct.
no
So each
new
of the projects.
Go ahead.
So the projects in black with the black X's, those indicate that they're currently underway, and we've tried to estimate when we think they'd be done. So looking at McCandless Park, it's got several phases. This is the second one down from the top. It has several phases that started in fiscal year 2022. It continues for fiscal year 20 up to fiscal year 24. And then we've got a phase at the very end, which is fiscal year 27. The reason for that is it's dependent on completing the McCandless Well project first. So at McCandless Park, we anticipate working on something out there for the next 5 years. The projects in red, we have not started yet. And what the red X's indicate is the year that we anticipate actually starting to work on them.
This is based on full staff, because currently you have 3 or 4 vacancies.
This is based on current staffing levels within the design and construction section with 1 vacancy. We have 1 vacancy in design and construction. So you're not planning on doing anything for the 2022 to 2023 without your staffing being fulfilled. Is that what you're trying to tell me? That is correct. So what I'm saying is currently we're in, I believe, fiscal year 2022. I'm not proposing any new projects right now. I do not have the staff that can start anything new.
We'll need to, if I may add,
go ahead.
Love the conversation. You know, from what it sounds like, well, you know, it would be optimal if we funded these engineering department recommendations for these additional positions, so that looking at this slide, the table, and Walter, who's calling you? Okay, let's get back to the meeting here. Column FY23. It would be optimal design and construction if we had a full force of the engineering department's recommendations for the additional positions. I just have concerns if we add 100 positions, if we can't fill them, you know, it's going to set us back. But what can we do? And it sounds like Mr. Erickson, pardon me, Director Erickson is doing his best to fill the positions.
Mr. Erickson, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Erickson, you're telling me that in order to do the parks rehabilitation, you need 4 additional staff for year 23?
No, I'm not saying that. On this slide, I'm saying we're going to start it with the existing staffing that we have. And that's stated right there on the right side of the slide.
Okay.
So ARPA projects we intend to start in fiscal year 23 with existing staffing. The reason why is because it's ARPA funded and it's a priority.
Okay.
So yes, we will be working. I mean, we will be fully loaded. We will continue that effort where staff is fully loaded up with projects. It's desirable that kind of workload within the group as it encourages turnover.
So what I'm seeing, correct me if I'm wrong here. Even if you fill those 4 positions, you're still going to just do just the ARPA project for a year, 2023 and 2024, because you don't start the other one, the well facility project, until the 24th, even though you have 4 positions filled.
Okay, so again, this slide shows current staffing levels, what we intend to start with no additional staff. If I could move on to the next couple of slides, please, and we'll put it up with what we can. Next slide, please. Next. Next. All right. So again, this slide shows in red what would be started with no current new staff. And the projects with the yellow highlight, this is what we could start earlier with 4 staff. So if we received 4 staff, we also believe we could start Dempsey Road in fiscal year 24. We could start Cardoza Park in fiscal year 2023. McCandless Park pedestrian bridge could commence in fiscal year 24. Main lift station meter replacement and the city standard detail guideline specification update in fiscal year 25, as well as the fire station modular building replacement in fiscal year 25. Future utility master plans that we anticipate seeing those within the next year in fiscal 26. And we believe we could take on a couple of the council referrals also in fiscal year 23. If we received the additional 4 staff positions, we could do these projects in yellow. If we only receive 2 positions, we believe we'd only be able to start projects in blue earlier. Does that make sense? So this slide shows what happens
This
with
is
no
what I
staff.
was looking for.
Okay, very good.
So it's essentially a bottleneck of projects without the bandwidth of the bottleneck. And the wider the bottleneck it can be if we hire more additional positions.
I still want to see that unfunded liability clarification before I really would support. I understand what you're trying to say, Mr. Erickson. I would love to see that unfunded liability explanation. That's all I'm saying. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Erickson, and thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add on one more thing to these 4 additional positions recommendation. I do believe as a non-economist that things will get better economically here over the next handful of years. Well, I guess we'll go 5 years, huh? I do think things are going to get better with business and knock on wood. And hopefully our revenues will get back to pre-COVID levels. And at that point, we're going to have the resources to get a lot of things done, especially if our hotels start to raise their weekday rates for lodging. And so it'd be nice to be prepared with these potential additional positions in that event, in addition to the bottleneck that we're in. So I think a great opportunity is going to come here in the next few years. And if we're prepared as an organization to take those resources and create production, it's going to be some really good times in Milpitas. So definitely not a simple request. as I can hear from my colleagues, but one worth having and one worth thinking deeply about. So next up, we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the bottom line is if you have more hands, more staff, these capital projects will move faster, and that's just the way it is. And I really believe that we can get these projects going. And you all know that I'm really a big advocate for the Cardozo Park softball fields. I mean, these folks have been waiting, and they're looking forward to that. Also, regarding unfunded liabilities, the unfunded liabilities are always going to be there. It just depends how much is unfunded. I remember when Julie Edmund Myers, when she was here, we put in a lot of money in that unfunded liability, and it brought it down. You compare our unfunded liabilities with other cities, we're doing pretty good. And then also in the beginning, I think Steve McCarris, our city manager, mentioned about all these projects that if we were to do it, would cost 270 million or something, some number I can't recall, but we'll never get to those. We'll always have projects all the time. It's just a matter of being able to manage the projects that are a priority for our residents. So I do believe that we need that staffing to get these projects going for our residents. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Point.
Thank you.
Mayor Chan, point of information.
Absolutely, you got it.
Okay, Ashwini, Ms. Kenta.
Yes, Councilmember.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Regarding the unfunded liability, it is my impression that we only have reserved for 2 to 3 months. Am I correct?
For the unfunded liability, no, Councilmember Chua, that for the unfunded liability, that's what we set up the 115 pension trust, and we put about 34 million towards it. And
what is that? What is that good for? How long is that?
So I will let our finance director, Lauren Lai, speak to it.
Let me refine the question. What's our monthly payment or periodic payment for our CalPERS liability?
Sure.
Thank you. Our finance director, folks, Lauren Lai, welcome.
Hi, let me first address the first question, which is we have 170 million. We have $34 million of liability. We have $34 million in a irrevocable pension 115 trust. Based on the actuarial study that we received last month from Bartel and Associates, and we went over this on January 25th with the council, and it was a lot to unpack, but the actuary basically said that financing will enable us to help bridge our general fund and stabilize our ability to pay for it. So they're very confident with the amount that we have in our reserve to be able to help us pay down that unfunded liability. As you can recall, that unfunded liability had kind of a fluctuating timeline. It peaked a little bit in 2030, and then it remarkably declines, and then it levels off. So I'm happy to have them come back and also do a study session or maybe an agenda item before the council so we can understand this a lot more closely.
Director Lai, that 30+ million, how long is that? I mean, what amount, what duration does it cover in terms of, people always say you always have to have 6 months of reserve just in case you lose your job, or you see what I'm saying? How long is that 30 million?
I do see what you're saying. So let me reframe it. The idea of having the 115 trust is to be able to take it down or withdraw from it slowly to help stabilize our general fund. The actuarial's recommendation is to actually withdraw it through 2040 mean, to answer your question, it'll last us through 2040, in which case that is the forecast when our unfunded liability will stabilize to the level where our general fund will not be as impacted as it is today.
But I like the mayor said, how much a month do we pay?
Oh, okay. Let me pull that up for you then. Give me a minute.
Yeah, it's just a ballpark.
Yeah, we don't quantify it necessarily by month. So let me.
A year?
Yeah.
There you go.
got
That's a
it.
period. Yeah, it's a great council when folks are getting into liabilities and things. That's pretty competent. Members of the public, we're going to go to you very shortly here. I'm not going to keep you waiting any longer. We're going to.
I'm done after this.
Yeah, it's all good. It's my fault. You know, I run the meeting, so.
So the unfunded liability for the miscellaneous is about 10 million a year. The unfunded liability for safety is about, oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong number. Apologize.
I was going to say. But public comment, we're going to get to your public comments very shortly here. It's 8 o'clock, and we're going to get to your comments.
You can give it later, Ms. Lai. It's all right.
Thank you.
You guys bring it back next.
Thank you, or next time. Thank you,
I
Mayor.
was just gonna.
Oh, she got it. She got it.
Oh.
In the meantime, I don't want to diverge too much from the discussion. We were kind of deep in this particular topic, so I don't want to go off too much. But yes, folks, we are talking about the 4 additional positions for the engineering department. And based on the slide that you're seeing, this is the impact that those positions will make based on either the three, among the 3 X's, the red, the yellow, and the baby blue. And as you can see, it's like a little horse derby at the fairgrounds. The more additional positions you have, the faster your horse is. I got the yellow horse. Cardozo Park softball field is going up first. Yeah, trying to make it easy for folks to look at it. It's a lot to comprehend, you know, but it can be fun. It can be fun, right? Public service is fun. Okay, Director Lai, please.
So when we look at it for approximation purposes, for the safety plan, the unfunded liability payment is about $11 million a year. And for the miscellaneous plan, it's about $7 million a year.
So your 33 million is about 2 years?
No, that's not how it works.
Okay, never mind. That's all I need.
Yeah, no.
We'll
So
go to the session later on. Mayor Schmidt,
Yes.
go ahead. Thank you, Ms. Lai.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So,
great.
Okay,
Well,
Mayor, I just, where is the Pickleball pilot here? Did I miss it?
It's in year 1. Yeah, it's in year 1.
It's on my page 5. But
Yeah, it's in year 1. And you know what? Here we go. Let me direct this meeting here. Let's finish up all the slides so we can take public comment. I believe Director Erickson said we're getting close to the end of the slide book here. So please, Director Erickson, take us away, and we're going to public comment next.
Sure, Mayor. If we could go to slide 55, and then Mayor, I have a question for you. During the discussion, we were researching the Mount Shasta and Park Victoria CIP project you mentioned, and we're unable to find anything. It would help me for the next meeting if you could provide some details on what you had seen and maybe where you had seen it, what page or et cetera of the CIP.
Definitely. Which year did you look at? Maybe
we've looked at the current 2 books and I haven't found anything.
Yeah, might go back.
Yeah, it would help me.
Yeah, might go back further, but I'll dig back, do a little control find on the last few approved CIPs, and it's back there somewhere. But yeah, let me do that. But carry on, Director.
Thank you. So at this point, we've reached the end of the presentation. The slide before you is the schedule for the CIP process this year, February 8th tonight. You received a presentation on the proposed document. The next meeting is March 7th, where staff will present the parks section of this proposed CIP to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resource Commission. On the 23rd of March, we will be before the Planning Commission to review the entire document, CIP document, as part of the city's general plan, so conformance with the general plan. We anticipate bringing the proposed CIP document back to you on April 19th for further consideration after we address several of your comments tonight, followed by a meeting in June 7th, where we anticipate a public hearing for adoption of the CIP document. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we're looking at funding a total of 38 projects for this next fiscal year 22-23 that starts July 1. The funding amount of projects is just over $29.5 million. The entire 5-year CIP funding, we're looking at a total of, I think that's incorrect, $202.3 million in CIP funding. And that includes an amount of $74 million of additional funding that would be required in the out years. We'd be adding a total of 6 new projects to the CIP. Next slide, please. So we've already had some of this discussion on the proposed 5-year plan, and some discussion already on council referrals, as well as the recommended engineering staff additions, which would be required to expedite delivery of projects, including several council referrals. And depending on council's direction tonight, if additional staffing is approved, that would be brought forward in the during the fiscal year 22-23 budget development process. Next slide, please. So the recommendation is to receive a presentation on proposed 2023 to 2027 capital improvement program and provide direction to staff. Be happy to answer any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Erickson, and great job again by all involved engineering department. It's an interesting one for a CIP year. For folks that maybe not as experienced with the CIP, I can remember seeing that $202 million in terms of project costs. I can remember not too long ago, maybe 2017, I think our CIP was like over 330 million. And so through the good economic times, we've been able to strike out a lot of those projects and get them off our CIP book. And so to see 202 million, that's actually a good thing, depending on how you look at it. So just really encouraging. It took a 100-year pandemic to slow us down, yet we never stopped. And we're going to keep advocating for our residents. So let's go straight to our residents. Hey, folks, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. As you know, your city council is going to dive deep into the nitty-gritty of the agenda item tonight. As you know, it's our capital improvement program, a list of all our projects throughout the whole city. And so kudos to our city council for their critical thinking. And let's go to our residents for comment based on what they've seen. First up with the virtual raised hand. I hope everybody's ready. Throw up your virtual raised hand if you're ready to go. Now is the time, only time of the night. Stephen Ballsball, you're up first. And we'll get the microphone unmuted. Announcement to all on the Zoom of the Milpitas City Council meeting. The special meeting of February the 8th. It is the time for public comment. If you're at home at your dining table or your living room, get to your computer. It is time for public comment. And Stephen, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members and staff. I'm part of a very motivated and dedicated group of 60+ pickleball players who wants to work with the city. And I believe there are alternatives out there that we could help come up with in terms of pickleball related activities that would be much lower cost, be more productive, and serve the needs of the pickleball community even better. So I would love to have the opportunity to talk to somebody and present some ideas that can save some time and money, which is obviously a very important quality. And just let me know how I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Kusum Lal. Pardon me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, welcome. Yes.
Yeah, this is just in response to the pickleball proposal at Gill Park. I love the sport of pickleball. I actually ended up playing it in PE classes at Milpitas High School. It's very fun. However, I do want to encourage the city council and staff to look into the potential of noise complaints coming into the area. Specifically in our area, the city of parts of North Berkeley and Petaluma, residents have complained a lot about noise about pickleball, noise from the hard plastic ball hitting the rack, hitting the paddle up until 8 p.m., 10 p.m. at night. So it's something that I hope that you guys have researched in your study before implementing something like this at Gill Park, because the addition of acoustic fencing can cost up to $35,000 to $45,000 in addition to court construction. So I just want to let the city council know about this, hope that they're aware, and I'll be sending some articles from the past about noise complaints to the entire city council and staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we will address concerns. Next up, we have Voltaire Montemayor. And to Kusam, go Trojans. Mr. Montemayor.
Thank you, everybody, the whole, all sectors, city council, city staff, engineering, public works, finance. Anyway, it's really the money. We don't want to be left hanging if we go and try to gamble. But anyway, I just heard a kind of remedial indicated by the previous speaker. That's good. And anyway, yes, if you only have to think that if you are short of people, then still the expenses we incurred is about the same doing the projects shortly and with the total expenses equal, but still the money and the stuff, it's a tug of, but the budget is kind of prevailing. But you never know. At least there is an instantaneous figures already. It's going on. Year 2022 is under control, even the 2023, and the black, red, the yellow, the blue, we will all advance. We pray. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, we got Jimmy Velasquez.
Good evening. I want to talk about the Cardozo softball field. I'm a coach for baseball, serve on the board for softball, and we definitely need fields for our girls. It's a big thing for us, losing our home field recently and kind of not having a full-time home is, hard on our league, and trying to find a place for our girls to play and practice, along with balancing that with the other sports teams. So I implore the city council to look at that and see, in hiring those positions, following the meeting tonight and seeing that with additional engineers being hired, that project could be pushed along and started sooner. I definitely think that will help us and help the city and the girls in our community have a long career, in playing sports, but also learning teamwork and leadership. And I implore the city council to think about that Cardozo project for the softball fields. And thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Jimmy. Next up, we have Tina Ortiz.
Hi, good evening, council.
Good evening.
My name's Tina. I'm the current president of the softball league, and I know we've worked in partnership in trying to get something going for the softball organization in the community, and I appreciate what the city has done in retrofitting Dixon to be our temporary home field. And like Jimmy was just saying, I know our issue right now is obtaining enough practice fields to keep these girls going. The numbers are growing for the league. We are accruing a lot of attention. A lot of nearby communities are bringing their players here to play because they like the outcome. They see what the results they're getting on the softball field. So I know money's an issue, and I understand. We do understand that, but like Jimmy's saying, we are currently without a permanent location to call home, and we're waiting for the city to step up and do more, and we know it will happen. I'm just hoping it happens sooner versus later. But I thank you guys, and I know you guys will do something. So I just hope it's sooner than later.
Thank you very much. Okay, folks, if you're here, I do see attendees and you'd like to speak, please don't hesitate. This is the public comment for the agenda item for tonight. And we're going to keep the discussion going with the council. I'll look here. Okay, Alan Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I wanted to thank the council for the effort that they're putting into the pilot program for pickleball. I wanted to identify the fact that project 5113 already has funding for improvements of courts in the city, and that pickleball lines could be painted on some of the courts with this money with no additional funding and no additional program for the city. So thank you, and please take that under advisement.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further comment, folks? Virtual raised hands up, please. I can't do it without your virtual raised hand. Throw them high virtually. Hear ye, hear ye. You are here for the city council meeting of the city of Milpitas. If you'd like to comment, I want to really afford you the opportunity as best as I may. If not, going once, I'm going to close it out. Going twice, there's always somebody last minute. Come on, folks. Going 3 times. That's it with public comment. Thank you very much. Perhaps if you have not spoken yet, we may be able to get to you for the items. Great. I hear too many times, you know, Milpitas is a great place to live, work, and play. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that here in town, but I'm sure every town uses it. But definitely, I think with the softball and the pickleball, you know, the play part's really standing out. Let's wrap it up here and go towards the direction for tonight. I'll go to our city manager. Here we go. In terms of the council referrals, what's our budget there for this year?
Could we bring up that slide? Yeah.
And while the slides coming up, we do have a recommendation by engineering for additional hiring. I just want to ask where that money is coming from as well, if we were to support the recommendation for the fiscal year coming up in July. So I see the cost and resources needed for the projects, but it would help to see what kind of budget do we have? What budget are we going to dip into for any one of these items? I would like to know what's in the expense account before expensing. Perhaps somebody can provide that information.
Sure, and I believe the answer is going to be more than one location.
Mayor, if I would, I believe slide 46 might help. It gives the total cost of the referrals and indicates the 3 funding sources that they hit.
Remaining fund. Is this for, okay, 1 fiscal year? Okay, so general fund, 1 million. 78. Mhm.
So the cost of the referrals, without any changes tonight, was 575,000 would be
Oh,
a hit to the general fund. So that would leave
yeah.
$1 million, just over $1 million in general fund remaining.
It's the
If that
general
makes sense.
capital, just to correct, to add on, this is the general fund for the capital projects. General
Right.
government CIP fund, it's not the general fund.
Right. And for the benefit of the public, how do we calculate general fund dollars, general government CIP dollars? How does our city, for the benefit of the public, calculate the funding for this upcoming fiscal year?
So annually what happens, and Lauren can speak to this here, she is great. Thank you.
Mayor, can you rephrase your question? The fund balance is presented there at 6.9 million and the proposed use is 5.2 in the second column. So can you clarify your question?
Yes, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I should. The available fund balance as of the date shown, what is the funding source for the available fund? And so where does the money come from to be into the general government CIP?
The general government CIP is predominantly the general fund sourcing. So it originated from the general fund from a future year, prior year, and it was transferred into what we entitled general government CIP. So council's intent there is to say this funding is now segregated for the purpose of capital improvement projects.
Copy. And how is that determined each year, the amount that goes from the general fund to the general government CIP fund?
Well, it's based on available resources. It's not stipulated in our reserve policy right now. So I think that's an area that we can revisit. So as noted on January 25th, the reserve waterfall, where once we've satisfied the emergency reserve and budget stabilization reserve, then we go through a waterfall of other reserves. So this is probably an area that we may want to revisit and enhance. I believe the assistant city manager also has her hand raised. I don't know if she wanted to add to this response.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Mayor. Lauren, I wanted to ask you to address the mayor's question on the position funding as well. It's not all general fund, Mayor. It comes from a variety of sources. So if you could address that as well.
Oh, great.
Sure. As mentioned in the agenda report of the position costs, the assumption is that 30% would be carried by the general fund for various administrative mandatory general government services. And then 70% would be carried by capital improvement projects, a variety of the project which the director and the capital improvement manager have summarized tonight. So it's a 70-30 split, with the majority of it being carried by the projects. Mm-hmm. So as noted earlier tonight, we talked about the proposed budget, including indirect labor costs and hard costs. So the indirect labor costs in these projects would support these positions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Understood.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Let's go back to the slide for the council referrals. And while we go toward the council referrals, let's talk about the city council chamber AV system replacement. That $1.3 million, are those general government funds, or are they from a different source?
Yes, Mayor, they are from a general government fund. I don't believe there's the technology permit fee funding that. Steve Erickson, could you confirm that, please?
Yes, give me a second.
Mm-hmm. You know I'm going somewhere. Help me get there. You know I'm going somewhere right now. And also,
okay.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
All right. So the information I believe is shown on slide 22, the council chamber AV system, 1.3 million funding. It's being proposed through the general government fund. Yes, I don't believe any of the permit fees would apply to that project, if I recall correctly.
Okay, great. All right, so it's my last CIP as mayor. I got to do something special right now, or at least give it a try. So, and also, you know, I try to use my MPA degree from some years ago. Maybe I'll get my tuition's worth. I'm still not sure about that, but great. Now let me talk about the softball fields. What's the cost estimate for that, if I may ask, please?
Sure. Give me another few seconds.
Yeah. These are the things I think about every night, you know. Public management.
So, Mayor, this is Michael Severa. I have that right on
hey,
top of my head.
Great.
You know,
what I love about these meetings, so many great leaders. Michael, please.
So we're anticipating it's probably going to cost overall $7 million for the entire project, but that could escalate a little bit depending on the type of option we go with. So is it a 3-field option or a 4-field option? So what we're proposing to fund $500,000 for the project is to figure out what option we would like to do. So currently I have in the book right now is $7 million, but that could escalate after, you know, we go through the design process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I think ultimately we want the 4 fields. Like other projects in the city, I believe we can do phases. I believe there's an opportunity to do phases for the project, so we can go 2 fields. And so I think does that include lights, Michael?
We are estimating lights also.
Okay, and so you called somebody for a quote and all that stuff, right?
Well, it was the estimates came. It was part of the adopted master plan. So Gates actually did conceptual designs for us, and it included some of those costs. So we have a very high level conceptual design that we're going off on today. But to get into more of the, you know, more details and really kind of nailing down the design, we need to get a designer on board to kind of go over these estimates.
Okay. Okay, so I think my last proposal for the night, as we move forward, and we'll hear from my colleagues, I like to support the pickleball item for tonight in its entirety. I think it'll be a smashing success, no pun intended. I think the costs are pretty low. I don't hear folks playing pickleball at night. There are no lights there at Gill Park. I know a part of that pickleball item perhaps is Hall Park and doing some restriping on the existing surface. So just want to support the pickleball item. But I want to see the softball fields move up. Now, of course, we may not be able to do it for this 22 upcoming fiscal year. But I think at the latest, I'd like to see it funded, the softball fields, at least one, at least the first phase of it. Let me check with Steve Erickson here. What's our bandwidth if we were, let's just say we had $7 million right now, extra money. What's the soonest we can push forward the Cardozo Park softball fields, hypothetically?
Right. Let me flip back to our
yeah, thanks.
Staffing slide.
Yeah, that's it. See, you got it all. You got it all.
So, I mean, you know, with no staffing increase, we're not going to be able to get to it till fiscal year 2025.
Okay.
You know, if we could get to 4 staff, then we would push for that starting in fiscal year 23.
Okay, great. So this is just based on the staffing at this point.
Right. It's the staffing resources.
Okay. But it's unfunded right now, you said, right?
So the design phase of $500,000 is funded. So we're not able to start that again due to staffing constraints today.
So for a year from now, follow up. Thank you very much for your assistance. A year from now, if we're sitting here a year from now, the design should be sort of kicked off, and we'll just be looking for the general government CIP dollars. Is that where we would be a year from now?
No, what I'm saying is on the slide, if we get no change in staffing as I have today, we're looking at not starting any work on that project until fiscal year 25.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Unless something else changes, other projects fall off the list of assignments. I can't get to it today without more people.
Okay.
Either
So,
2 or 4.
No, you got it. Okay, great. And so if we were to fund your recommendation, just if you could remind me again, the funding would come from our general government CIP fund, or I just want to be specific. Okay.
Correct, as shown on slide 52. The total cost for 4 positions is $928,500, funded 30% through the general fund of $185,700, and 70% through the capital improvement program to the amount of $742,800. This is the third bullet on the slide.
Okay, great. Let me transition over. Actually, I'll leave the softball fields parked here for a second because it's there where we need it to be. In terms of the Dempsey Road waterline project, can you go back to that last slide with all the X's? Is it on there?
Slide 54.
Yeah, the one with the horse race. Yeah, there we go. Is it? If we had the funding, okay, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's not much we can do. That's all the comments I have. We'll go to the next virtual raised hands. Next up, we have any virtual hands, folks? Okay. Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I really am set on funding these 4 additional positions because, like I said before, if you don't have the hand, if you don't have the staff, nothing's going to move up. It'll just stay where it's at. So that's my recommendation. But I do like how everything else is the ARPA, park rehabilitation, Dempsey Road waterline, all that. And then with the Dempsey Road waterline, you had made some type of recommendation.
Yeah, I requested to bring back the project modified from Dempsey Road. And so staff will bring that back at the next meeting in April. Okay. We got time. We got plenty of time. It's not a one-night thing here.
But I really do feel that we need to fund those 4 additional positions.
Yeah.
To move this forward. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, here's what I was thinking that I don't think is working anymore. But I wanted to unfund the audio video project in our chamber, and then I wanted to add that 1.3 to the remaining balance of our general government CIP fund, and then hopefully try to creep it to $2.5 million to push for at least phase 1 of the softball fields as soon as this fiscal year. But based on what I'm seeing, fiscal year 22 on this slide, and hearing from our Director Erickson, even though I think there's only 1 vacancy, we're unable to, even if we put the money together, fund anything for July 1. So, I think that's a little disheartening. And it's all because we don't have personnel to do it. And so I think the money can be managed, and we could have money for at least 2 softball fields, at least in terms of funding it. as a phase one. But just looking at this slide, we can't even get into that fiscal year 22 column. I wish we can hire somebody from the outside, just like the skate park. Let me check in with Director Erickson. Director Erickson, when we built the skate park, we had an outside group come in, and I think they did design and everything. I mean, what role did our city play in the skate park besides, oversight and building inspection? Perhaps you can show some parallels between the skate park and the proposed softball fields.
Thank you, Mayor, for that question. Yes, so I managed the skate park project from conception to completion. So that included hiring the designer and managing that concept, that process through the city, there were concept designs. There were, meetings with the PRCRC. There were city council meetings on the concepts. There's a lot of effort in managing a design consultant. And so once that's through, I had that project bid. We had actually, I think, 2 bidding phases for that. And so once we got the contractor hired, I managed that during construction. So that was a lot of my time for that particular project, specifically because we started the construction in November through a very heavy wet season that year. So at one point after we demoed the old field, we had like 2 feet of water.
Yeah, I remember that.
So,
yeah.
Right. So even though we use design consultants to provide the city with plans and specs for construction, it still is a big effort on the city's part to make sure we get what we're paying for in that line. So it's administration of that contract. It's reviewing the plans and specifications, not only in-house in the engineering department, but working through others. So
let me try one more thing. Let's go to the slide that shows all the projects for this July 1, this year 1 of the CIP. Let's go to all the list of the projects.
You might want to look at slide 50, I think that shows what we're currently doing, as well as what might be able to be added.
Okay, great.
So again, the projects in black are what we're currently working on right now.
Yeah, we don't want to disrupt those if they're current.
Right. And then the below in red, those are when we think we could start a project. Again, this is based on no new staff. Recall?
Yeah. Well, I think my last ditch effort here, in removing the audio video project, it's not that simple to just replace it with the softball project. It's just 2 different projects. So, and I don't see any projects on this list that are current fiscal year 22 or 30, 23 that, I'm not going to swap out any of these projects for the softball field. So it's kind of almost for this fiscal year, not possible due to the staffing. So, Mr. Director Erickson, do you think there's any possibilities? We have till April in terms of finding the funding for the softball project and perhaps getting just a phase 1 going for July 1. Can you think of any possibilities, or if I can circle back around with you by April to see if we can get some funding to kick off the softball project for July 1?
So, Mayor, as I mentioned, as shown on this slide in black, we're basically we have a full project load right now with the staffing we have, and so fiscal year 22. I'm not proposing to add any new projects. I just don't have the staff resources to do those. Fiscal year 23, I'd rather not add any new projects. Again, it's still a full load, but there's something we have to do, which is the ARPA project. So we're committing that. That's still 8 projects for fiscal year 22-23. That's all we can handle without additional staff.
Okay, great. No further questions, Director Epson. Appreciate you. So yeah, I guess my last recommendation to the council is to sort of postpone the city council chamber project and actually just save that funding for next fiscal year, and so that we can start to save for these softball fields. Let's go to the vice mayor.
So no, that's a motion, right? So I'd like to second that.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Just to confirm for the council, we don't actually need a motion tonight, just direction from the council.
Yeah, just providing feedback. So in April, and then we could spend this time too. I hate to just think out loud, but we'll spend these next 2 months. Pickleball's a shoe in, folks, but softball thing, you see where we're at. So just giving it a good old Milpitas try. Let's go to the virtual raised hands. Next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I just want to make clear with staff, what is the plan? I think I'm addressing to Deputy City Manager Walter. What is the plan, since you have a consensus, I think, for the pickleball pilot? Can you give us some timeline here? Thank you.
Sure, Council Member. So next week, we're coming back with the ARPA funding, our ARPA plan to discuss potential reallocation of certain resources assigned to certain ARPA projects. So the council has a choice at the time to reallocate funds towards ARPA, towards pickleball from the ARPA funds. So that's number one. If the council decides not to do this, you can give us direction to use the general government CIP fund to fund this project.
And do you have the resources, the staff to do this under Public Works? How soon will that, once you get the go ahead, the source of funds from the council next week, what's your work plan or timeline for the start date for the construction or enhancement of Peter Grill Park?
Sure, we would have to put a bid together, go through procurement, through purchasing, and then submit the right specifications, go through purchasing, and then get a contract in place to implement the project.
So what's approximately what do you, just a ballpark figure, what is your timeline?
Sure. Tony, can you speak to that, please?
Because that was a question that was sent to me by the pickleballers.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember Chua. So just looking at timeline wise, let's say in a perfect world, we got the approval, say today, for example, you're looking at about maybe 30 days for us to go through the procurement process, like Walter mentioned, putting the packet together, going out to bid. So that's all about 30 to 45 days just for that. We need some turnaround time from there to get the contractor moving. And then the timing for them to do the work itself, we haven't really processed that yet. The one thing that I would caution though is that we do have a material shortage issue in the industry going on right now, particularly with the one item that's going to be needed for this project is fencing. So we do anticipate that there may be issues there with delays on that one. So I can't really give you a date on when the project will be completed. There's some material items that we would get in place, others that we do fully anticipate there'll be delays in the shipping and manufacturing.
That is fair. Thank you. Thank you both.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to direct with the support of the council, direct city staff tonight or next week, whichever one. I want to direct through the city council, direct city staff to immediately fund an amount not to exceed $75,000 immediately for the pickleball pilot program, with that amount to be reimbursed in a few months when the CIP is approved. Let's go to our city manager for the response.
There we go. So I hear that you would like $75,000 ahead for pickleball pilot program. I'm going to clarify a little bit. Sounds like you'd like us to apply that to items that might have a long lead time, or we're pretty confident would. Maybe get those items shortened up, because the rest of the project would still have to follow through a process. So if that's something that we could work out with Public Works, I suppose that's something we could do. I do want to clarify with Tony, is there any issue with parsing out that piece, parsing out a material piece? It would be installed by a contractor, so we would actually own the material.
Yes, thank you for that. There are always dangers in contracting where you pre-purchase materials. I think our safest bet would be just to get our efforts going towards putting together the plans and specs as soon as possible, and letting the contractor procure all the information, all the items that they need. Just because we don't want to get in a situation, which we have before in the past, pre-purchasing materials and then having them not really work to the contractor's needs and specifications.
And Tony, in our bidding process, could we preference contractors that have the ability to supply that material in an expedited manner?
That is correct. Yes, we can put together a specification with some performance standards in there, and those bidding will then know that those are the items that they have to live up to in terms of timing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. And I think it's how it should be done. We don't want to build we're not in the inventory business. And so my request is to approve funding for this pilot program immediately, so that the whole process can begin, like you said, with design and plans and the whole thing. And so we do have unassigned dollars from last fiscal year, 1.49 million, and that money would be reimbursed with our CIP. We just want to start the clock immediately, and what action the council will take tonight. So I'll go to our city manager, the point of contact here. I want to make a direction for our council to get the project started now, in light of some of the challenges that may or may not present itself.
Well, it sounds like, yes, it sounds like our director can move the project forward with the funding. And it also sounds similar to street lighting request at our last meeting, with funding provided for us to move something forward. So we would handle it in the same manner.
Great. And the money will be
sort of, yeah.
Money will it'll be back. So great, fantastic. Let's check with our city attorney. How can we do this for the books here? I want to make sure it's in the minutes, and if we have to bring back the item next week, or if we can do it tonight, either or, we'll go to our city attorney for the legal guidance.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So obviously we want direction from the council tonight just on the CIP plan. The request from staff here is, yes, give direction on what you'd like to see with Gill Park, but with the understanding that it will come back to you at some point for potential approval, depending on dollar amount of that bid. But yes, expect it to come back to you in some shape or form. I would not consider this final approval or any kind of approval.
Okay, so if the city manager has the authority to allocate those funds for use when appropriate and ready, then I'd like to direct our city council to push the pickleball pilot program immediately tonight, and allow the city manager to work with the public works director and whoever as a team to begin the process with funding an amount not to exceed $75,000. And that way folks can get to work now rather than in July, which is, I think, quite some time away. So if there are any objections, please let me know.
My hand is up.
Okay, yes, Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First, I want to start by saying thank you so much to our pickleball community. This was basically the same proposal that was proposed weeks ago, where it could have just been funded by ARPA when we did the ARPA funding, and it could have already started. So those of you that were with us on that call, thank you so much for continuing to be here. You guys are right. It's basically, that's what's happening today. It's not happening for sure because it can't be part of this discussion. What it sounds like, it's gonna come back, it's giving direction to staff, but it sounds like it still has to come back for a final approval. So I want to apologize to our community for wasting your time. This is something that could have happened when we talked about ARPA. And thank you so much, Councilmember Chua, you brought it up as well. And I remember we both were talking about that. And so I just hope that in the future, we don't let our own personal agendas move into wasting our community staff and our staff time and our time. This has been a lengthy discussion to something that could have already happened. And I'm excited. I'm thankful. I can't wait to be out there with our pickleballers to learn how to play. And it seems like it's moving in the good direction. So I just want clarification on something. So staff, when we talked about the softball fields, it sounds like there is no way of moving that forward unless we get 4 staff, unless we fund the staff, correct?
That is what's been presented to the council.
Thank you. So I think at this point, personally, I do want to see that coming forward. And I want to give staff capacity to help our department because I do feel that we have the opportunity if we can. I don't want to miss the opportunity with softball. Like we missed it. Thank God we could recover with pickleball. But if we would have spent that money and allocated that ARPA money, then we would not be in this position where we could fund pickleball. So I want to make that very clear to our community that if we would have allocated 100% of the funds that we got from ARPA, we wouldn't be able to do it and we would have missed an opportunity because we didn't take advantage of that. So I don't want the same thing to happen with the softball fields. I am a true believer, like I stated in that meeting, and I'll say it again. If it's not in writing, it's not happening. So for me, this is a direction. It's not a final vote. So I still feel a little nervous about it. And I still don't have clear indication of where we're moving with the funding of positions. So I just want to, whenever that's clear, just let me know because I do want to fund those positions. I don't want to miss an opportunity with softball fields. I want that to happen. And so for me, I guess, I don't know if we're going to vote. And I guess that's where my point of clarification is are we voting to fund those positions as well in your recommendation, Mayor, or are we just taking it step by step? And I apologize if I'm not following the process of thinking.
I appreciate your comments. Let's go to Deputy City Manager, Walter Rossman.
Thank you, Councilmember Dominguez. I appreciate your question. Just to clarify, we're seeking input tonight from you. When we come back with the operating budget on May 11th, I believe, I'm not sure, early May, we'll bring forward recommendations regarding these positions.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for that clarification because I did get a little confused. So perfect. I just wanted to state those comments for the public. And again, thank you all so much for your time.
Okay. Let's get back to pickleball. Yeah. Let's make a request here. We'll give direction. Love to give direction and try not to give direction too much, but pickleball, I think we got some support here. So yeah, I just want to, I guess I'll restate it just so I can be clear for staff. I just want to direct through the city council of Milpitas for city staff or city manager to allocate an amount not to exceed $75,000 from our unassigned fund. Last time I checked, 1.49 million, so that the pilot program for pickleball can commence immediately, and the money will go back. The money that's allocated in the general government CIP fund will go back to the general fund or the unassigned fund, whatever it's called now, and that way we can just start the pickleball pilot program immediately, so staff can get going. And I appreciate the bandwidth to do it. So thank you, Councilmember Chua, for your leadership on this. Let's go to Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I've noticed that the last statement says, if the project is approved, will return to council upon completion of 1-year pilot. I was only looking for 6 months. So I think 1 year is a long time. And I would also I would like to request staff to do a quarterly report, like 3 months and then the 6 months.
Mayor Tran, can I jump in here? I just want to make a recommendation
Yes, please.
to council, because I know this slide is a little confusing for the council, and it's a little confusing to me too. I think what staff really just needs is general direction tonight. It sounds like there's consensus of the council to see pickleball, at least from a staff perspective, start to move forward, with the understanding that approval of that will come back to you in some shape or form at a future meeting. And once you do have that opportunity for approval, or if staff comes to you with an update, then definitely you can direct, I think, staff at that point in terms of timing on the pilot, any kind of reports back you'd want. And so I just want us to make sure that we're not getting too far off topic, but definitely I think staff hears the direction. Definitely this is something that staff is going to start working on, and they will definitely come back to you at some point in the future for that approval. And definitely feel free to give your input, I think, at that point.
Okay, I will give my input then next time. Thank you, Attorney Diaz, and thank you, Mayor.
Great. Yeah, no, that's why we appreciate the legal guidance. I did go to Chris first before I kind of wound it up. And so I just kind of need a communication or a signal that our city staff's going to start working on this pickleball pilot, let me say it correctly, pilot pickleball project. And if not, then, do we need to agendize it? I just want confirmation, formal action to ensure that direction is fully given. If someone can help me.
Yeah, I'm gonna step in. And Chris, if I say anything wrong, please jump in. It sounds like what I heard is what we are going to do on the staff side is start the pickleball process, which includes the bidding, design, procurement. But the bid itself has to come to council for approval. That's what I heard our city attorney say. So at that time, you would have the approval of the project. But we all know, because we've heard this several meetings, everybody wants pickleball. The staff's been aware of that, so we're not surprised even tonight. So that's where Tony's able to give you commitment that with funding, his shop can move this forward. And just to be clear, this isn't out of engineering. So for folks listening about the staffing required, this is in a different department, and that's why we're not having that discussion. Chris, if I have that right, then I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Steve. Mayor Tran and council, yes, I think the city manager has it correct. Staff has the direction. We're definitely going to start working on this, and it will come back to you for future direction and approval. And the council was perfectly fine this evening. I just was
no, that's all good. No, I don't it's been an interesting night, but okay, great. I'm satisfied, and I can't wait till the item comes back to our agenda, hopefully sooner than later, but we are moving faster than commencing on July 1st. So I'm pleased with that. I'm okay with that. So Councilmember Chua, thank you. Okay, we're still here. I think we're getting close to the end here. I do want to do a time check, and I do want to encourage for us to adjourn soon here. I think staff's got a whole ton of feedback. Hopefully y'all can put it together. I did make my request, and I hope to free up a little bit of money to hopefully fulfill some of my requests, or even just to consider it. Who knows? We'll find out in April. I'll meet with the city manager in the meantime for more immediate updates. I want to do MVP of the night for tonight's city council meeting as we go towards adjournment. I want to do tonight's MVP. I want to give the MVP award to Director Steve Erickson for receiving the same question, I think, at least 5 times in terms of the additional positions. And I want to just we're thinking about you, And I did ask you that question at least twice with the one slide you had. And so I apologize. I don't know, other people ask you the same question. So tonight you get the MVP. We don't give out the MVP award a lot, but for taking the same question and explaining it to each person as best as you can, your effort was noticed and did not go unnoticed. So for that, I'm going to support 4 additional positions. I don't think you needed to go through all these people to ask the same question, but I apologize, and you're doing great. So
Thank you, Mayor.
yeah. Okay. Do we have a consensus? Let's get a consensus here. I know the Vice Mayor and I support it. Any objections? The 4 additional positions for engineering. Okay, that's it. I see that's, and everybody else too. But we do want the information back as well.
Mayor, can I object?
Oh yeah, that's right. You object. Okay, great. But we got enough there. But and we'll go to Councilmember Chu. I know Councilmember Chu wanted to do some due diligence, so I support that as well.
I would like to see the impact of almost $1 million FTE payroll to the unfunded liability before I make my decision.
Absolutely.
And we have the time until the last meeting.
Correct. Okay, great. Well, not a bad start.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay, great. Look, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Any parting words from my colleagues before we go to our city manager?
Mayor Tran,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank Director Erickson as well. So I think I did ask the same questions that you asked. So he's my MVP too tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I think Director Erickson, did you have your hand up, or is that an accident? I did see an
Accident.
Okay.
Accident. Thank you.
Yeah. See, we traumatized them. He's actually okay. Vice Mayor Montano.
Yeah, I just want to concur with you, Mayor, and with Councilmember Dominguez. It is important to staff those 4 positions. If we want to make these projects move forward, we have to have those positions. And I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of the young girls that are depending on us for those softball fields. So keep up the good.
Great. Any other words, my colleagues? I know for me, I'm going to take my mind off of the CIP for a little bit after tonight. Interesting meeting tonight. A lot of feedback. We also learned a lot about our bandwidth as well. So perhaps we can get creative or provide some type of support to increase the bandwidth. Okay, great. I don't see anybody else. Pickleball's on a roll. Let's go to our city manager to close it out for us.
Okay, well, I would also like to thank Steve Erickson and Michael Severa. Excellent job. They've worked unbelievably hard to get this to you, and you can see the level of detail in all these projects. The 4 positions, as Vice Mayor had mentioned, they are critical to moving those projects forward. And the bandwidth issue, it does run across all the departments to various degrees. And I think you saw a good snapshot, actually a good learning exercise going through this and seeing what it takes to move all these mountains that the council and the administration moves together across the board in all the various aspects of Milpitas life and the services we provide to our citizens. So I do appreciate the time and the comments, and even when the comments are mentioned more than once. So with that, I have made notes. I'm sure my staff has as well. We'll be convening tomorrow to go over all the issues that came up today and the consensus on various items, and those will be packaged up for you in future meetings on this topic. So with that, that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job, city manager, city attorney, chiefs, and directors all around. Have a great night. This meeting is adjourned.